Well, hello everybody. Happy Saturday, happy holidays, and welcome to live coverage of the Virtual Racing Championship Season 7 race number 4. It's the Stars and Stripes 300, one of the pinnacle events of the year, longest race of the season from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Some patriotic schemes on full display as 16 cars get ready to go for a battle here and the mile-and-a-half race, the second cookie-cutter track of the season. Eddie Kalegi here alongside Bryce Ward. Bryce, we're moments away from the start. What are some of the keys you're looking at heading into this race?
Well, I think first things first, Eddie, is we have to look at, the way this race is going to play out. Some unique differences with this one. Obviously, this is known as the longest race we're going to do, 300 miles. That's it's not a short race, as y'all know. So when we take that into account, there's a little bit different proceeding here in terms of we usually just have one halfway bonus. Tonight we're going to have two. There's going to be one at lap 50 and one at lap 100. The second half of this race, the final 100 laps, will be run under green with no pre-planned cautions, I guess, so to speak. So again, top 5 at those pre-planned cautions, 100 as usual, the actual halfway mark. And then at the quarter mark, we will also have another one of those halfway breaks. That'll also give points as well to the top 5. So that's going to be key here. There's going to be some strategy going on. About 30 laps of fuel is what these guys are getting. And I think that's going to be key as well when we get into the back half of this race. But we can talk about that more later on when we do get to that point. But for now, just trying to get the car to handle through turns 3 and 4 is going to be the biggest key. And if you can do that and accomplish that goal, you're probably going to be set and on your way. There's definitely going to be some key players here tonight. Of course, you got to talk about somebody like a Tim Moore, who always does very well on these mile-and-a-half race tracks. You got to look at somebody like a Casey Master or a Drew Jua as well, who I think could both run very, very well here. T-Glass as well, or Tyler Glass. So those are just some guys I'm looking at.
So we are off and rolling. Opening lap, Ryan Steinberg starting from the pole, subbing for Tyler Glass in that Team Drew entry in the 41, and he gets off to a nice start, still looking for his first career OMA win. The outside pole sitter Wesley Farrell got a bad start. Parker Ness slips in front of him. His teammate Jonah Yohanan battles for second, but across the line it's going to be the number 41 leading the way in Ryan Steinberg to lead the opening green flag lap, while Wesley Farrell pulls to the outside trying to make a run, and Drew Jua, who's won this race twice before, making his way up on the outside, also won last week, trying to go for third place.
Indeed, and he had a very close call last week, so he's just trying to come in here, right off the momentum. He swept last week. He got the halfway bonus. He got the race win, of course, as you just mentioned to Eddie. But that team as a whole this season, you look at him, you look at Master, you look at Glass, who again, he's not in that car tonight, but he's got a solid sub there. Pole, that's a pretty big statement there, even as a sub. So you look at that. That team has had a car in the top 2, not 3. Well, they've had one in the top 3, but the top 2 every single race this season. Master at Daytona, Tyler Glass at Chicago, and then of course Drew picked up that team's first win last week at Richmond. So all 3 of them have been showing their speed, showing their strength. And I think, again, all 3 of those cars could be up here tonight. As you see, of course, 41 started on pole, and Drew definitely showing his muscle here early, Eddie.
Yeah, Drew has gotten away with Wesley Farrell. Farrell is your leader right now, the number 7, racing for Ohio River Racing. Missed the Daytona race. Riley Goff subbed for him and ran well, and he's done pretty good in the 2 starts since. He's a decent spot in the point standings, not all the way up there, but hanging around 6th place. And Tim Moore in the 74, someone to watch out for, won the only other mile-and-a-half race this season, and in that 74 Flex Seal Chevy, he's moved to 3rd place. Someone else to watch out for, the highest running McGuinness Motorsports Ford, that's the veteran Sebastian Kukalan, who just made a move into 4th in that number 12 Ford. Has had a bit of a quiet season, but is always a factor at the mile-and-a-halfs. This is his 6th time racing in the Stars and Stripes 300, a veteran of the series. And here running in 4th is Jonah Yohanan in the 1, bounces off the wall. He gathers it up, and Ryan Steinberg ends up losing even more positions.
Indeed, and again, that's something you're going to see a lot tonight, I think, as guys, maybe getting up into all things. I talked about pre-race, but I'll elaborate on this a little bit more now. This track looks like a pretty basic cookie cutter, right? Like in Atlanta, it looks very similar in, just from an aerial view, or, if you take a look at the track map to a Texas or to an Atlanta, they all look exactly the same, right? Well, that's where you're sort of wrong. Yes, their shape is similar, but these tracks have very different characteristics about them, and one, not so visual, but very noticeable difference with this track and unique characteristic that this track has that you really only notice from behind the wheel of one of these cars is that going through turns 3 and 4, it is extremely difficult to keep the car planted on the bottom where you want it to be. It's not easy to pass here because, which in my opinion, this is a little bit unrealistic by the game, but it's what we got. And it's that you can't really use momentum from the middle or high lane to go make momentum and get a run on somebody. It's a lot of bottom line freight train business going on, and you just kind of have to hope somebody slips up, and 3 and 4 is really a big spot where that happens a lot. I've seen that already quite a few times. Guys just miss the bottom, or they lose the nose off the bottom and slide up a lane and a half, and that allows the door to open up coming out of turn 4 and allows the side-by-side racing down the front stretch. But 3 and 4 here again is going to be the biggest key tonight, trying to keep that car down. And if you push it in there too deep, you might just find yourself not only pushing up, but pushing all the way to the outside wall, Eddie.
Casey Master is working his way up the field, started 14th, but that Barstool Sports red, white, and blue car is trying to take 8th place away from Kevin Urguez. Back up to the front, Tim Moore has got around Drew Jua for 2nd place. Chad Eastwan now got bumped by another driver, Bryce, who was looking to get their 2nd win of the season. That's Ben Smith in the 18 for Mistcraft Motorsports. Hasn't made a lot of friends out there so far this season, but he's running well, and he's up there in 4th place.
Indeed, and look, I hadn't seen Ben race too terribly much outside of this, and what I had seen, and not to sound bad, but what I had seen out of him did kind of fit some of the reputation that he's gained out of some of these drivers recently. You look at the first 3 races, while yes, he had a really good run at Daytona, won his first race there, there was definitely some controversy around that. There was some stuff that went down at Chicago. He ended up not getting a great finish there either after a late race penalty. And then Richmond just was kind of off a little bit. Ran well early on and just kind of slipped back, and then of course got in a little bit of trouble again very late in that race. But he's had speed. That's the biggest thing I can say for Ben is he has had speed this season. That's been evident every track we've been at. He's shown some sort of speed. Even if he doesn't maybe come up with the finish that he would like at the end of the night, he had that speed during the race. And again, he's still pretty well up in the points, but he definitely has got to start maybe trying to not only get those finishes to be more consistent at the front, but also, again, be respectful to those guys, because look, these guys that he's kind of made a little bit upset recently are guys that he's going to be racing with all season if he intends on contending for the championship. All these guys are championship caliber. You look at Master, you look at Tim Moore, you look at Drew Jua. All these guys are guys that you look at to be in the fight for the championship easily throughout this entire season. So upsetting those guys is not going to do him any favors. And look, he's had a rough 3 races. Maybe he takes that tonight, tries to learn from it, and tries to start fixing some of that here at Charlotte tonight. It's a long race. Sounds like a perfect time to maybe start trying to mend some of that a little bit, Eddie.
Yeah, and something I'm really noticing, which is interesting, is that the pack is not spreading out. I mean, it has been a lengthy run. We're on lap 15 right now, and there are still about 9 cars under a blanket for the lead. Right now, it's Tim Moore who has gotten around to the front, and 3 wide for 2nd. Wesley Farrell up on the outside, bumps with Ben Smith. Jonah Yohanan makes a move to the bottom. Chaos as they battle for 2nd and 3rd. Somehow they all gather it up without wrecking. Tim Moore comes out the best of that group. Jua and Kupalon lose a couple spots. Now Ben Smith sends Jonah Yohanan up the track. He almost bounces off the wall. He gaps it up though, and everybody keeps it straight. This allows Chad Eastwan in the 24, the VNS points leader, to come to the lead. So a lot of chaos in that pack, but everybody gathered it up. Ben Smith got used up a little bit, got his revenge by moving Jonah Yohanan up the track, and we're really seeing the intensity picking up here at Charlotte as we hit lap 17.
Indeed, and we're already now as well starting to get to a window as these guys continue to get pretty racy up here, which is nice to see. Again, I talked about earlier.
Crash.
Boy.
Sorry to cut you off, but there is a wreck on the backstretch. Curious to see. Looks like the 3 of Logan Fielder. Someone else got into him as well. They're going to say it's just one car. It looked like someone else went down to the bottom, but Logan Fielder for Dark Horse Racing wrecks and hits the inside wall.
That's tough for Logan. Again, Logan was somebody else who kind of popped up last week at Richmond and had a solid run going. Some things kind of unraveled for him a bit. Still got a decent finish, but he was leading quite a bit of that race, especially in the middle stages, right before the halfway mark. And again, some things just kind of unraveled there, but he showed some speed. And this is a track where in other leagues I have seen him absolutely dominate races and contend for a lot of wins. So this is tough for him early. Obviously, again, very long race. We have a caution at lap 50. He's going to be able to come back from this eventually, I think, but that's not something you want to have happen early on. Again, we're closing in on pit stops too, probably here before too long. I'll talk about that in a second. But that's not something you want to have happen early here because it's going to kind of throw your strategy off, especially for this first little quarter stint, I guess you could call it here, Eddie. But either way, I expect a lot of these guys, again, we get 30 on fuel. Well, that means 20 laps into this race, the pit window is open to make it to the end of this first quarter, lap 50, when that caution will come out for the bonus points. You can make it starting at lap 20. I expect anybody, on pit rope between there and lap 30, there's a 10-lap window. I look for most guys to maybe be splitting it about right down the middle, around lap 25, maybe try to short pit that just a little, maybe say in a lap 24, 23. But I expect most of these guys are going to be in more towards the middle portion of this this part of the race and trying to just kind of split this down the middle for tires.
What's going to be interesting, Bryce, is some of the cars that have not really attacked for the lead, who I think have been a little more conservative, that are probably going to have speed. Gavin Hudspeth is one, Casey Masser another. Yeah, they've been charging up, but they haven't been dueling it out and pushing it as hard as these leaders might be able to get a couple more laps on their tires. Ryan Steinberg as well. But Ben Smith now, as Tim Moore got a little shuffled out through 3 and 4, didn't see exactly what happened there, but he's going to drop to 4th place. It's a 6-car battle for the lead. Ben Smith now takes the lead. Wesley Farrell is in 2nd. Chad Eastwan bounces off the wall. Tim Moore is 3rd. Drew Jewett at the bottom for 5th, looking for 4th underneath the 24 of Eastwan, racing for Expert Racing Esports. And the 1 car of Jonah Johanan is in 6th. Ben Smith now slinging it on the high side, almost hits the wall as well. Tim Moore looks to the outside of Wesley Farrell. Farrell blocks, so the 7 is hanging on right now. You have 6 cars in that lead group from 6 different teams, which is pretty impressive to see all these different guys mixed around up there. But Wesley Farrell in front of Tim Moore as Moore looks again to the inside through turn 3. We're coming to lap number 24, so as Bryce said, that pit window will probably be opening very soon. But for right now, Wesley Farrell, who has been pretty quiet this season, ran well in extra last year, is really having a nice run.
On Dayton, you know what else I find interesting, Eddie? You talked about this top 6. There's 6 different teams up here. Well, again, this just shows the strength of this series and the teams here. Again, we are 3 races in that have been completed. We've had 3 different winners, and all of those have also come from different teams. You look at, again, Ben won at Daytona to kick off the season, won the 250. That was for Miscraft, right? Then you go to Chicagoland. Tim wins, no shocker there. First start of the season for him because he missed Daytona. He goes out and wins. That's for Dark Horse. And then you come to Richmond last week where the good old Spooky Dookie Racing guys go to victory lane as Drew put those guys in victory lane for the first time this season. So to kick off the season, Eddie, we've had 3 different teams in victory lane with 3 different drivers, and we've had a lot more contending for the wins. I definitely could see another new winner, a new team in victory lane tonight. It would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, 3 races, 3 different winners, and there's certainly a lot of talented guys who have not gotten their first victory yet. So just an update, Eddie Kalegi and Bryce Ward here, bringing you coverage of the Stars and Stripes 300, the final race of 2021 here. It'll be a holiday break coming up after that, of course, with Christmas and New Year's before the second half of the season, January and February. It's Wesley Farrell out front, followed by Tim Moore, Ben Smith, Drew Jewett, Chad Eastwan, Jonah Johanan. Now a little bit of contact, looked like lag from the 10 of Jua as Ben Smith went up the hill. Further behind, So that's that top 6 leading the charge. The next group is led by Parker Ness in the 42. He's pushed by Casey Masser in the 14 and the 95 of Kevin Yerguez. They are 7th through 9th at the moment and running a bit of a 3-car tandem. We heard some drivers talking about how important the draft would be. Ryan Miniker is in 10th. Gavin Hudspeth has come down pit road. It looks like the pit cycles have opened, and it's been for a couple of the drivers actually towards the back. So the leaders are staying out here, pushing it to the brink as we come to lap number 28. Looking at pit road, it is not too busy. The 2 of Hudspeth has stopped. Kyle England is getting his service right now. He was the Clash winner at Road NC. He is in the pits. Ike Shelley looked like he was going to come down, but decided not to. Logan Fielder, England's teammate in the 3, he also came down pit road. He's coming out, and now the leaders make their way down pit road. It's just going to be Wesley Farrell. The number 7 is in, and Tim Moore cycles to the lead.
Indeed, and here's what's going to be important to keep an eye on now. You look at, obviously these guys toward the back like Gavin and Kyle there that came in. Where will they cycle out? We'll have to wait and see. But the biggest thing here is now we start watching these guys come in, out of the top portions. Of course, Wesley the first to do that. The short pit here, again, is very crucial because you do wear out tires here. Not only handling-wise, but also your lap times begin to fall off. Well, when somebody short pits you, they come in and get fresher tires. That's going to mean that while you're still out on the racetrack on these older, worn out tires that aren't exactly up to par for lap time, Eddie, these guys are going to come in, get new tires before you, and they're going to be able to gain time just by having not been on those old tires for nearly as long as you have. Now, sometimes that'll come back a little bit to you as, you both are back out on track, but you pitted later, and they obviously... that person, whoever you were competing against, that short pitted you, they're now on slightly worn out tires, but the advantage to me just isn't equal. You don't always get everything back unless it's a pretty big difference. I'd say 3 or 4 laps, then you might start to see more of that back, but short pitting usually, especially if it's close, is a very effective way to gain time on somebody other than passing them on the racetrack. It's a very effective strategy, and this is one of those places where it does work very well.
So Tim Moore is in along with Drew Jua, Chad Eastwan, Ben Smith, Parker Ness, the 12 of Kukulon Pitts, the 34 of Ike Shelley. So it looks like the cycles are almost completely done now. So now let's see. Tim Moore and Drew Jua are coming off. Where will they be in retrospect to the rest of the leaders? And they're going to be a little bit ahead of them right now after pitting a lap later. Or will they? As Wesley Farrell is charging up, they are coming off the banking off of turn 2. Farrell is past Jua, Farrell is past Moore, and the 7 car of Wesley Farrell will cycle to a pretty significant lead over Tim Moore at the moment. Now Ben Smith in the 18 underneath the 10 of Drew Jua. 2 very similar looking paint schemes. Jua trying to keep pace on the outside. That's a battle for third once this all cycles out. Contact is made between Smith and Jua. Now Eastwan underneath Jua as well. Drew trying to make that outside lane work. He'll drop back to 5th and be content with that for now. Jonah Yohanan is in 6th at the moment. Then you've got 7th place Ryan Steinberg. 8th is Yerguez. 9th is Ness. In 10th place, it looks like it's Kyle England, Casey Masser, and Gavin Hudspeth both lost a couple of tracks positions there. They are 11th and 12th out of this pit cycle. Kukulon is way back in 13th. So that's how the rundown sets up. Looks like we're on lap 33 at the moment, so 17 laps until halfway. And you mentioned it, the little bit of a difference on tires, Bryce, if you pitted later. And we're seeing that right now. Tim Moore already starting to cut into Wesley Farrell's lead a bit, and Drew Jua catching Ben Smith as well. Both of them having slightly newer tires than the cars in front of them.
Indeed, but here's where this is going to play for Wesley if we just look at this battle for the lead here. Obviously, Wesley got on that short pit. He pitted before Tim. I think it was a couple laps different, though. I think Tim stayed out an extra 2 laps compared to just coming in the lap after. So I think that's, again, where you're probably seeing a little bit of this difference. But now Wesley, he had the lead there, which has since been cut down a good bit by Tim. But, he had a fairly good lead off of that. His job now, Eddie, is going to be holding that to the best of his ability and trying to defend Tim, which I can tell you right now is not an easy job. Tim is very good. He's very methodical. He's very smooth. And he knows his strategies very, very well. oftentimes if you watch an RHR broadcast, I'll try to predict what these guys are doing or what drivers are doing for strategy. And Tim will always be the one guy that just undermines me. I might think of what he's doing, but I'll usually say something along the lines of, no, I think that's too much. You're going to lose too much time doing it. But yet he somehow does it. He's done that a couple times to me at Iowa and other places. So Tim is very smart when it comes to strategy, but he also has the speed there behind the wheel and from the driver to go with it. And that really just makes him a powerhouse. And you're seeing that now. He has really cut this down.
This is getting interesting. There was a lot of contact. I did not see exactly who made the 3-wide move. It might have actually been Jua on the inside that kind of forced it, and then Ben Smith bounced off of Tim Moore. Tim's not going to be too happy about that, but we were on lap 47.
Especially after last week.
Yeah. Ike Shelley, by the way, has lagged out. He was 16th driver in the race. He's going to finish P16. He was running 15th at the time, so the 34 Ford, which has had some internet issues this season, couldn't get on last week. Daytona lagged out of the 250 and again will lag out here, so disappointed there for McGinnis Motorsports. They still have 2 entries, but are both outside the top 10 with Hudspeth and Kukulon. Meanwhile, Drew Jua now putting the pressure on the 7 of Farrell. He's going to look to the outside. Bryce, we're seeing Drew a lot running that middle groove. This time he's going to dive to the bottom and try to make the pass here on Wesley Farrell, and I think he might be able to do it. But talk about the lanes a little bit we're seeing these drivers choose, because it's not just trying to file along the bottom that we might see at some other mile and a half with these Cup cars. We're seeing these drivers mixing it up, using the middle and maybe even high side.
Indeed, and this is actually surprising me because I even said, and I guess I'm eating my words a little bit right here based on what we've both observed from this race so far, Eddie. But I said earlier I thought this was going to be a lot more trending around the bottom because statistically and just races I've raced here, races I've called here, it is mostly bottom lane racing. You can maybe make the middle work sometimes, but not usually. It's not easy. But I tell you what, Drew and some of these other guys have really found something with this middle lane. It is working. They are actually able to use the momentum from it. I've even seen a couple of guys, not as much tonight, but a couple of guys even try, even that third lane up there, trying to make something work out of that. And that's even worked a little bit for them, which is surprising to me. But I tell you what, if you can get that middle lane working like Drew has been doing, I've seen Tim do it a little bit as well, it makes a lot of time and it makes you a heck of a lot harder to defend for spot. If you're going to go past somebody like Drew's trying to get around Wesley, that makes your life, or makes their life a lot harder, makes your life a lot easier behind the wheel because you have options. When you're stuck in a scenario where you really only have one working groove, you're in a box and you just have to either maybe try to use the chrome horn and move somebody up out of the way, or you're just going to have to wait for a mistake. You have to be extremely patient because you don't have a lot of options. But here, the way these guys have been able to make this track work tonight, they have options, and that's created some amazing racing and some amazing battles so far.
Very impressed with Chad Eastwan in the 24. He has slightly older tires, but here's going to make the move underneath Tim Moore and makes a clean pass for second place. So Eastwan on older tires breaks up the Jua-Moore tandem and splits them into second, and now has a push from Moore heading into turn number 3. Meanwhile, Ben Smith and Wesley Farrell, who were fading, got a big draft as those guys went side by side and kind of held each other up. And again, Eastwan, who's got such a great run off of turn 4, he's going to go for the lead underneath Drew Jua. The VNS points leader with the help from Tim Moore. Ben Smith bounces off the wall, and Chad Eastwan is going to take the lead here at Charlotte with 7 laps remaining before the halfway bonus. But we know this isn't over. Tim and Drew have newer tires. Jua's going to keep the front of his car to the right rear quarter of the 24 to try to hold him back. Eastwan's going to slide up and block him just barely clear. Now Tim Moore and Jua and Farrell are going to go 3 wide down the front stretch for second. Contact between Moore and Farrell, nearly forcing each other down onto the apron. They're still 3 wide through turns 1 and 2, and the one car loves to see this is Chad Eastwan at 24. Jua comes down a little bit on Moore. Moore comes back up. They're still 3 wide. Now Farrell makes contact with Moore. Jua's going to bounce up the wall. Drew Jua's going to lose a spot. He falls back to 5th. And now Moore's going to be underneath Farrell, side by side for second, but it's Eastwan in front with 5 laps still halfway.
Indeed, and keep in mind, all this is within inside the top 5, Eddie, so when we get to lap 50 here, there's points awarded to this top 5, so again, if you're somebody like Tim, like Drew Jua, these points mean a lot because there's quite a bit of a championship battle going on, and there's a lot of heavy hitters within that. You know, somebody that they were looking at, and he kind of had a rough week last week. His sub did anyway. Casey Master, who was initially up in that, kind of slipped back a little bit after last week's race at Richmond. But he's trying to climb his way back, but he's not quite up in the area I think he would like to be in right now. So this is a chance for these guys to try to gain more points on him. But they are racing hard for these. I tell you what, as clean as these guys were last week, and it was still a good race, this has been fun to watch. There's been a little bit of beating and banging. Hey, look, this is NASCAR. Rubbin's racing, right? So you take that. We've seen some amazing 3-wide action, Eddie. This has been amazing. I did not expect this out of a Charlotte race.
Yeah, I did not either. I thought this would have singled out a little bit, but we're still seeing side by side. And Wesley Farrell is doing an amazing job holding up there with Tim Moore side by side for second. Farrell is a rookie to the VRC, and he's hanging pace. Ben Smith made some contact with Drew Jua. He lost a little ground. They're going to be coming to 3 laps to go until halfway here, which would mean no more cautions until at lap 50 yellow, where the top 5 are awarded points. Pressure is coming now from Wesley Farrell and Tim Moore. They're almost 3 wide for the lead. Farrell makes contact with Tim Moore. They keep it clean. They squeeze together. Jua makes contact with Farrell. They bounce off each other, and they still keep it straight. Tim Moore to the front. Jua to second. Farrell to third, Eastwan back to fourth. Now Drew Jua side by side with Tim Moore. Coming down the back straightaway, coming to 2 laps to go to halfway. What can Jua do? Can he clear? Now Farrell makes contact with Eastwan, moves him up. They probably just want to get the 24 out of there because he's not competing for points. These points mean something here, and Wesley Farrell is staying aggressive in third place, but it's Tim Moore behind Drew Jua. Jua seemingly out of nowhere, finding himself in front as we take it through a lap and a half remaining before the first halfway, honestly the first stage. This is 3 stages as Bryce mentioned, but right now Tim Moore's got to run to the inside of Drew Jua, tries to get there, but Jua shuts the door. They're going to be coming
wait a minute.
for 1 lap. Farrell goes wide. He bounces off the wall. Contact with Ben Smith. Now we're going to be coming to the white flag here. Tim Moore versus Drew Jua. What will happen here up front? Moore trying to make something happen on Jua. Jua defends the bottom. Coming through the backstretch here for the final time before the first stage. Moore's got to run to the bottom. Makes contact with Drew Jua. Here comes Ben Smith. The 3 winners from the first 3 races this season. All together battling for halfway. Now Smith to the outside of Moore. He's looking for second. Off of turn 4. Farrell's there as well. Jua defends the bottom. Moore with a big block on Farrell, and they're all going to be behind Drew Jua, who's going to take the first stage. And what an amazing first 50 laps of racing in the Stars and Stripes 300.
Stars, Stripes, and should we add Sparks onto that title, Eddie? I think
we should.
That's what we've been doing a little bit here. But I tell you what, it's in a good way. I did not expect that out of a Charlotte race. Again, I know we said that a couple minutes ago, but I want to elaborate on that more. I thought this was going to be, like you said, a lot more single filed out, a lot more mellow. It has not been that. It has been anything but that. And by the way, all of this with no crashes. We had 1 incident, unfortunately, for Logan Fiedler, who drives the 3 for Dark Horse. He had a little bit of trouble earlier, but aside from that, we have been green, no incidents the entire way. And to see that racing, how hard all that was. A little bit of rubbing fenders there, but again, that happens. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think many of these drivers will either. It's going to call up here, and we've had a lot of 2, even 3 wide racing, which again is just something I would have never expected out of a Charlotte race. And again, we're only 50 laps in. We still have 150 laps to go. So if this is just the beginning of the racing that we're in for tonight, Eddie, I am all for it, and I am happy to be here.
Yeah, totally. And 15 drivers, they're all very fast, 16, but Ike's out of the race, so it's down to 15. Everybody's on pit road right now. Drew Jua coming out. We'll see if anybody gambles. I don't think so. Jua's going to beat Tim Moore off. Looks like Eastwan may actually beat Tim Moore, which would be a gain of 2 spots for him because I believe he was 4th at halfway. Haven't gotten official word on who the top 5 was at halfway. Ben Smith gets tied up with Farrell coming off of pit road, but it looks like the top 2 now will be Jua and Eastwan as we get ready to reach on lap 53. I don't know if anybody was a lap down. Ike Shelley is out of the race. Maybe the 3 car, but I think everybody's caught up, and they'll probably be going green here. But I want to talk about one driver in particular, and that's the 24 of Chad Eastwan. We know he's been
That's
doing
who
very
I was
well in
thinking.
VNS. And yeah, I don't really know what's going on right now. But yeah, I really don't know what's going on right now. And the 24 just spun to the inside. But once he gets back up there, Bryce, he's been having a real heck of a race here through the first 50 laps.
No, indeed. If you didn't talk about him, I was. So you kind of took my thought away from me. How dare you? No, I'm kidding. But no, look, Chad he has really impressed me. I haven't seen him race a ton, but I know he's done very, very well in VNS this season. He's picked up several wins there. Has done very, very well in the points championship in that series. And of course, he ran the 250, had some time up towards the front in that race as well. Did very well, and most importantly, he hasn't made anybody upset or anything. He's just running these races in VRC, getting the experience, but he's getting that time up front as well, Eddie, and it's showing. And I tell you what, team owners out here are seeing this, and they have their eyes on this guy. I mean, how can you not? You look, he's racing up here with some of the key team owners in this series. Excuse me. You know, like a Tim, like a Drew. These guys, he's up here with these guys, Eddie, and he is making a mark. He's making a statement not only in VNS by doing what he's doing down there, but also when he comes up here to VRC, he's up here contending for the lead, and you know, I would think if he keeps this up by the end of the night for a win. So, heck of a drive by Chad tonight.
Now, they're still trying to figure out the exact positioning here. That's why this restart got held a lap. Drew is telling the 24 that he's set on track. For once, the Expert Racing Esports car is not like avoiding a penalty. They're actually like penalizing themselves for no reason and putting themselves about 5 spots further back than they're actually supposed to be. Here he comes now. So yeah, he had a good pit stop. I mean, he beat Tim off pit road. He had been 5th at halfway. By the way, top 5 at halfway is official. The first stage, by the way. It's called Halfway 1. Drew Jua got 1st, Tim Moore 2nd, Ben Smith 3rd, Wesley Farrell 4th, Chad Swan 5th. They're the top 5, and they get points 5 through 1, respectively. Coming to the line, 15 cars ready to go for lap 54. Green at the line, Drew Jua back up through the gears, and we're back racing.
Indeed, 46 laps to go here. Now, again, lap 100, we have another one of these halfway cautions, another round of top 5 drivers getting points. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. Pit strategy probably be slightly different here. I'd say maybe 23 is going to be halfway here with the caution laps. We'll have to keep an eye on that later. Right now, though, Eddie, we got a restart going on, but I'll tell you what, Tim got a really nice launch.
Yes, Tim got a nice restart, and now he's going for the lead and has some help from the 24 of Eastwan, who's right back up in it after a poor restart on the outside. Moore's going to be looking for the front. Now Wesley Farrell's going to go to the outside and try to work with Drew Jewell a little bit. Casey Masser, by the way, is into the picture the first time. We talked about it. He started towards the back. Yeah, we got to keep an eye on him for sure. He's to the inside looking for 3 wide for 3rd. Farrell bounces off the wall. Masser's going to clear. It's a big wad coming off a turn 4. Looks like they're all going to keep it straight. Farrell and Yohanan made some contact as Masser made a bold move for P3. Farrell again is up in the wall. I don't know if there's a problem there because he's completely missed the turn 2 times in a row. And now the 7 car is falling way back. I wonder if it's team orders potentially to get out of the mix. Meanwhile, 3 wide for the lead for an instant as Casey Masser gets under Tim Moore. He's going to slide up in front of teammate Drew Jua. Where did he come from? Casey Masser. He started 7th, and he's in the lead in just 3 laps.
Indeed. Look, I think Casey's driving with a little bit of a vengeance last week because he wasn't here, and his sub did not do all that great for him. In fact, I'm going to be honest, did awful. Cost him a lot of points. Not a single bonus point for that car last week. And I think he finished either last or very close to last. So that is not what Casey needed.
Big crash turn 3. Big crash turn 3. Kevin Urguez is in it. Looks like the 7 of Farrell is torn up as well. It looked like more than 2 ran into it. Yep, they're going to say 3 cars. That's the first caution for contact here, and they'll slow it down. But a big hit for Wesley Farrell. He got looped around, made contact with the 95 of Kevin Urguez. Didn't see who else was involved. Might have been the 2 of Gavin Hudspeth, along with the 12 of Sebastian Kukulon. But the caution is going to be out here, and pit road should be opening up.
Indeed, I tell you what, man, though, Farrell's race, his race went from really good to really bad very quickly, Eddie. He was up here battling for the lead just a few laps ago, battling for 3rd, I guess I could say, and he was up here a lot in the first portion of the race, I guess you call it, in the first first halfway. I don't the first quarter, but he was up here a lot, and now you see he had those handling issues or something. Maybe some sort of adjustment he made. Something was not cooperating on that 7, and he plummeted very quickly. And now, of course, he under this caution finds himself involved in a multi-car crash in the wall. So things changed for him very quickly, which is unfortunate to see out of a rookie. But again, he's got a long way to go still yet. He got the caution. I think he'll be able to rebound. He's just got to be patient now and try to get back through the traffic. Here's what I'm going to say, though. I'm going to go back to my point about Casey. He missed out on those points in the first half. I know he is very good at this racetrack. He and Tim Moore and another league that I actually race in had an amazing finish here for the win. Side by side, dooring each other at the line. Kind of like a classic Bobby Labonte, Jimmy Johnson finish here. And I think it was 2005 for the 600. So that's kind of what it reminded me of. But I tell you what, both Tim and Casey, Drew, all these guys are very good here. Casey, again, we talked about a little bit quiet in that first stint there, but I think he, again, is driving with a vengeance, trying to get those points back that he lost last week, trying to climb back into this championship battle. He missed out on those bonus points in the first half. I think, Eddie, he does not want to miss out on this other opportunity at bonus points, and that's probably a good mentality to have.
So, a little bit of confusion. They made a bit of a late call about pit road being open. I feel like we had that problem last week when 14 cars got penalized for pitting when it was closed.
You were not one of those, though, by the way.
Yeah, I was one of the 4 smart ones. But now it looks like pit road is officially open. They're not gonna penalize anybody. There was a mistake and there was some internet issues with getting the pit road open call out according to race control. That's why half had pitted, half had not. But now everybody will be getting their service. Everybody's getting fresh tires. Everybody who's out on track, by the way, right now, I think has already pitted, with the exception of maybe Ben Smith in the 77. Potentially they stayed out both services, but all the rest of the leaders are in nonetheless, and now they're going to have to try to sort this out a little bit. So it looks like Ben Smith is actually going to take over as the leader of this race at this point. So the 18 plays the pit strategy here. I mean, his tires aren't too worn per se, and it's not like you're going to make it to the lap 100 caution from here, but Bryce, I think tire wear still matters a lot and can cost you in speed for sure, especially if it's like a 10-lap difference between other guys.
Oh, it does, and that was probably a 3 or 4 lap run you add in these pace laps, which doesn't take a ton off the tires, but it does take a little bit, especially when you're going to have everybody else, for the most part, behind you, except maybe one other car that are going to be on 4 fresh tires. I can tell you right now that's probably going to hurt your restart, or at least affect your restart launch ability a little bit here. You might not launch as well. You might not be able to get up through the gears as well because the speed's missing. Again, he's probably going to be just a little bit down on speed because of this. So it'll be interesting to see how Ben does this. Look, we know he's not afraid to be aggressive, and he's probably going to have to be aggressive, Eddie, to make this work. So this could get interesting. I would definitely be watching the 18 here.
Green flag is back out here, lap 61 right now, and Ben Smith gets the launch with help from the 41 of Ryan Steinberg, your pole sitter, who's found his way back to the front. Like we said, Ryan Steinberg is subbing for Tyler Glass. Now, Glass is available to race, but he's been having some pedal issues that he's still getting sorted out. Last week, the pedals was a disaster. He finished 16th at Richmond. Definitely would have been a top 10, maybe a top 5 car, but Ryan Steinberg is filling in, and Ryan Steinberg causing quite the backup right there off the restart as he kind of checked up through turn 4, and it's the 24 of Eastwan getting underneath him. Smith and Jua have set sails and gotten away, and it is now 3x3, 3 rows back behind the top 4. They'll try to settle it out off of turn 2. Never mind. Crash in the back. The number 7 of Farrell is around. Collects the 3 of Fielder. He gets tapped right at the end. Sebastian Coupelon may have got a piece of it as well. We'll see what the call is there, if it was 2 or 3, as they continue to race around. Caution wouldn't be yet. Now they're going to say race it back, so I assume they're going to race it all the way back around, or are we seeing people back off? Another one that's really close between making it to the line or not. Looked like somebody backed off there that didn't really know. That might be Tim Moore, who just may have lost a lot of spots, but they're racing it back to the line here, and the 18 is in front, Eastwan second. To me, the call for caution came after they had crossed the start-finish line, so I think this makes sense here. Ben Smith coming to the line, Eastwan on the outside, stays in front of Jua, and it'll be Ben Smith leading the way as the second caution for contact comes out as some trouble off the restart. Wesley Farrell again wrecks, collects Logan Fielder and Sebastian Kugelon.
Definitely two guys who had already been in trouble tonight. That's unfortunate for Wesley and Logan, but obviously this is going to put us back under caution. I'll tell you what, though, Eddie, now all of a sudden Ben Smith looks like a genius. He went, got some track position, held onto it, held onto the lead, and now pit road will reopen here at some point. Now, what everybody does here, I guess, is yet to be determined. I would expect Ben on pit road at this point, but will everybody else come back down, or will people kind of steal a page out of Ben's notebook here and maybe try to do what he did on this caution? I think we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I tell you what, Tim, I don't know. I think he was one of those guys that maybe came in under that caution in the second wave of cars, and that kind of cost him a lot of track position because he is not up where he was earlier. Of course, you mentioned he lost a few spots there when he thought the caution was out, but he was well off of where he had been in the earlier portion of even this segment of the race. So he was one that definitely got largely affected, I think, by that last pit sequence there under the caution when there's a little bit of miscommunication. So he'll be looking to try to get all that back here on this restart.
Surprise a little bit, Jonah Johanan is going to stay out in the one car. Tim Moore, what it looked like, I think he backed down. I think he thought the caution was already out. So the race here is for second. Ben Smith is going to get second pretty handily, followed by the 77, it looks like, of Miniker. But Johanan stands alone. Now this field is really shaken up, so it's going to be interesting to see how it sorts out. But Jonah Johanan, a veteran of the series, driving for Ohio River Racing here, raced in VRC a couple seasons ago. He's back in it now, racing for Riley Goff's team and up front and getting to lead some laps. And we'll see if maybe he can hang around up there.
Indeed, Jonah, he had a little bit of a rough start to the race, actually. I think he was the guy very early on that ended up losing the nose a little bit, ended up in the outside wall. Didn't have amazing track position, but again, just like Ben did in the last caution, he's trying this. They only ran about 2 or 3 laps there under green. He was on pit road the previous caution, so about the same situation that Ben was in as far as tire wear. He's now going to try the same thing that Ben did to get this track position. It worked out pretty well for Ben. Ben now sits in second, so we'll have to see if this works for Jonah or not, or if Jonah maybe is missing some pace, because I know Ben does have the pace to be up here as well. I haven't seen that quite yet tonight out of Jonah. We'll have to see if he can find it here on this restart, though, Eddie.
So they got bottled up under yellow, so it's going to be one more time around. We're going to end up restarting on lap 67. Just a reminder, Eddie Kalegi with Bryce Ward, Stars and Stripes 300, Season 7, Race 4 of VRC action. Ben Smith won the season opener at Daytona. Tim Moore then on fuel strategy got the victory at Chicagoland, and then last week it was Drew Jua, a former VRC champion, getting the victory lane at Richmond, as Moore actually ended up ironically running into the lapped car of Ben Smith with 2 laps to go. So there was some drama there. We had a very exciting and very clean first 50 laps, but now we've seen 2 wrecks here since the lap 50 yellow. One of those involved Wesley Farrell getting turned around by Kevin Urguez. The second one, he got bottled up on a restart. There were 3 wide, collected Logan Fielder and Sebastian Kugelon. So setting the field as we come to the restart, you've got the one of Johanan. I have a breaking
story I want to touch on too
go ahead,
after
Bryce.
you're done. I was going to say, I want to point something out here really quickly. You talked about Chicagoland. Well, here's why I'm going to bring this up right now. We're going to be going green with 32 laps to go. The fuel window is 30. Tim Moore, I don't know if anybody else did, but Tim Moore came down and actually topped off on fuel before that caution. That's why you see he is at the very back now as we are going green. This could be big because I think there's going to be some fuel mileage here. If this half goes green to lap 100, there will be fuel mileage, and Tim right now is looking in the best position. I just wanted to get that in there.
Yeah, that is key. Tyler McDonald did that a few seasons ago at Michigan, where he came down and topped off under caution. They are 4 and 5 wide, bouncing off each other, and they're wrecking hard. Parker Ness is around. Wesley Farrell's in it again. I don't think that'll be half the field. That probably shouldn't merit a caution. We'll see what the official call is. Yeah, he moves up and gains a few. Wesley Farrell has had a disastrous last 20 laps. Same goes for Logan Fielder. They both lose a ton of track position, and they are going to keep it green right now. So Jonah Johanan is your leader. They're saying roughly 4 to 5 cars. Half the field would be 8 right now, since there are 15 on the track, and just a reminder on rules. The first lap after a restart, half the field has to have heavy contact in a wreck to merit a caution, just so we don't get too many consistent cautions over and over and over again. And then it becomes 3-car yellows after that. But Jonah Johanan hanging tough in front right now. He's got Drew Jua in second. He drove for Team Drew last season in VNS. And then you've got the 77 of Ryan Miniker driving the part-time car for Ohio River Racing third, and he puts a big block on Casey Masters looking for fourth. So some different faces here, Bryce, contending for the lead right now.
You didn't actually. Ryan was up here with us last week. Of course, you were out on track, so I guess you kind of swapped spots. Ryan was up here with me and Fisher last week calling Richmond, so nice to see him out on track tonight. Nice to have you back up here in the booth, even though I know you would enjoy being out on track tonight as well. So, but no, you look at Ryan, you look at things. I tell you what, Eddie, this part of the race has really it's shaped out completely different from the first portion. You look at the guys that are up front now, there's some of the similar faces, but there's a lot more new faces up there as well, and guys that we had seen up front and racing a lot for the lead earlier, like the 7, like Tim Moore in the 74. Those guys have either strategically or just had some issues, but they are now further back now. Things have just really changed. We've had a lot more cautions. We even had 5 wide, and that is something I never thought I would see at Charlotte. It did not work, but the fact that we even saw it was impressive. So it's been a very insane portion of this race, but again, we do now have to keep our eye on the fuel mileage situation because most of these guys pitted with about 34 to go. We ran 2 pace laps. We went green with 32 to go. Tim Moore, actually, though, again, like I said, came in, topped off on fuel. That was with 33 to go. We went green with 32. There is some opportunity to save fuel here as you're only about, I would say, 3 laps short. Even for Tim, he might be 2. You don't use a ton of fuel on pace laps, especially if you're smart about it and you put the car in 4th gear and roll around that way. You use a lot less fuel. But there's going to be, I think, some opportunity for fuel saving. Now, whether everybody takes that opportunity, Eddie, is yet to be seen. But that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. We are within the pit window now to make it from here. If you're going to pit, you could pit now and make it to lap 100. It's just a matter of who does it and who decides to try to save it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And you mentioned Chicago. There was some drama after that race. I mean, it's drama after every race, but some drivers that don't have the shifters that Drew Jua, Casey Masser, Tim Moore have were a little frustrated that they felt like they had a bit of a competitive disadvantage in that situation, to which those drivers explain that there are other ways that you can save fuel. Now, Chicago...
Casey actually doesn't have a shifter, by the way.
Oh really? So that adds even more to it, but what I think Chicago, it was a little more extreme with the number of laps that had to be saved. In this particular situation, it's only 2 laps, and I think it's very possible without a shifter, even on controller, to be able to save that gas, especially since you lift a lot here in the corners at Charlotte, and especially since we have a lot of mini packs here where drivers are getting the draft off each other. But Indeed. One team that ran really well at Chicago that is right back up here is Spooky Dookie Racing, Team Drew, whatever you want to call it. They've got 3.
I love that team.
They've got 3 in the top 5. You've got the 10 of Jua in first. You've got Casey Master in third. Ryan Steinberg subbing for Tyler Glass in fifth. But they're going to lose the lead right now as Chad Eastwan is given really free reign to take the lead. And you wonder now if Jua kind of let him by so he could draft and kind of let off a little bit and start trying to save fuel. Eastwan was given pretty much a clear path there to move up into first place.
Indeed, I definitely think that's what happened there, and yeah, I want to elaborate. So look, yeah, I know a lot of guys like to try to kind of complain if they're on controller about saving fuel. Look, and I don't win a lot. I won my first ever league race in my first start on a controller saving fuel. So I can tell you right now, you can save fuel on a controller. And I can tell you, Casey's out here running a controller. Not everybody is, but I can tell you, you talked about Casey. He has a wheel and shifter, but he doesn't always like using it. Actually, he hardly ever uses it outside of when he was in the Pro League. So he uses that controller. He saves on that. So for those of you that think it can't be done, it definitely can. And Eddie, like you said, the 2 keys to that are going to be you use the draft, you kind of sit back in the draft, you ride, and you use the throttle control. You allow the car in front of you to kind of pull you to keep you, close to race pace, what you would want to be running, and then instead of using the car and the full throttle to get you to that pace. Use the draft of the car in front of you and partial throttle to try to save you that fuel. That gets you fuel and tries to keep you close to race pace, not fully, but close to what you would typically be running, not trying to conserve anything. So that's kind of the keys, but it's a very tedious thing you have to do. It takes a lot of commitment, and I think that's honestly where a lot of guys struggle with it. They don't always have the commitment and the ability to realize exactly how much they need to be saving and keep track of it. That's something that's very hard. It's not easy to do. It takes a lot of focus and things from behind the wheel, and that's not something that everybody has. It's something you kind of have to adapt and learn over time, but it doesn't just come to you.
So we are coming now 20 laps until the real halfway bonus, which will be the second time points are awarded. You've got Drew Jua there. Gavin Hudspeth, who must have gotten wrecked in the back, didn't see it, but he's about to be passed and he's about to be lapped. The 2-car has been struggling. Hudspeth was saying he was not looking forwards to the Charlotte race at all, one of his weaker tracks, and he has been struggling tonight. And what's been a tough night for Big Ace Motorsports, Sebastian Kukulon's been in a couple of wrecks but has speed. Hudspeth is now 15th. Shelley out of the race in 16th. The McGinnis Motorsports team that had 3 drivers, and I believe the top 4 in points, about 8 races into last season, and of course got the championship with Tim Moore. Tim leaves, replaced with Gavin. Ike Shelley has struggled mightily this season. Kukulon's been quiet, but Team Drew has really become the superior Ford team, and they're showing it right now with 3 cars in the top 4, and now Eastwan's going to back off and let these guys go by. It seems like nobody really wants to lead. I think everybody's sensing what Bryce mentioned, and it looks like right now with the way the field is split out, unless this lead pack gets together, very likely that we could end up going green to lap 100. So a lot of this could turn into fuel saving, and you're seeing Nasser, Jua, Eastwan, they're all right there. They don't really want to lead because they want to be able to get the draft and let off a little more, and that's letting the 41 of Steinberg close. Jonah Yohanan is like, screw this, I don't want to save fuel. He's going to come down pit road, so the 1 car is out of the mix. So it's Eastwan mixed up with 3 teammates from that Drew Jewett camp with the 10, the 14, and the 41, all trying to save fuel here. They really need to save 2 laps since we went green with 32 laps until the caution at lap 100. Kyle England, the lap car, moves to the outside. The 10, the 24, the 14, they'll all file in. The 41 a little bit further behind. Another car down pit road, that's Ben Smith in the 18. So Bryce, we're seeing a lot of guys kind of throwing up the white flag per se and saying they're not going to save it. And we're seeing them also with the lap 84 right now, really trying to split this as well, since we went green 16 laps ago and we're 16 laps away from the yellow.
Indeed, and here's where the battle's going to kind of come in. I don't think you win this this halfway if you don't save fuel, because there's a lot of fast cars that have been up front all day and have had speed that are now up here saving. However, where this is going to be a battle for many of these guys, Eddie, is, again, I talked about that short pit earlier where you kind of go in, you get the tires, you come out, you have fresh tires, you gain time. Well, now these 2 worlds are going to collide, because now these guys that are out here saving, they're not only on older tires, but they're also backing down their pace purposefully to try to get a little bit of fuel out of it. These guys that are going down the pit, obviously they're losing a lot of time just by doing that. These guys that are saving, trying to cut out a pit stop, trying to cut down a trip through the pits. That's a lot of time. That's probably, what would you say, 30 to 50 seconds at least, almost a minute. That's almost 2 laps here. It's definitely about a lap, but it's roughly 2. So when you take all this into account, Eddie, I think it's going to be one of those things. Where do these guys try to gain that back? Because at the very least, they need to try to get back on the lead lap by the end of this. If they don't, they're going to be really behind the 8 ball going into the final portion of this race, the longest part, where we are not guaranteed any more cautions. If they get back on the lead lap here, which is pretty feasible, then they might be in a better position. But again, it's going to be a battle between now. These guys are on newer tires. They have the pace on that, and they're not trying to save anything. They're pushing. That's where this battle is going to be. It's going to be interesting. I definitely think a car that is fuel saving will win this race. And honestly, I think the top 5 will probably be filled with cars that are fuel saving. We'll have to see how this settles though.
Yeah, that's true. And another clarification that Bryce kind of alluded to there, everybody who's a lap down or some number of laps down gets one lap back under each caution. So if you're a lap down here at lap 100, no problem. You'll loop around then get to pit at lap 100. But if you end up multiple laps down, you'll get one back, but you'll still be trapped to lap down with no more guaranteed yellows. It's a 100-lap sprint to the finish after that, if you want to call it a sprint, but it's a long one, and there's no guaranteed yellows, so you got to bank on a caution there. And we've seen races at mile and a halves where maybe there will be some, spurts where you'll see a couple of accidents, but then things will clean up and you can see a stretch run like they're seeing right now on track. And you don't really want to be hoping for and depending on a caution coming out in those last 100 laps if the fastest guys make it to the front and then just kind of pull away and everybody kind of splits up. But we're seeing the lead continuing to change hands here. We've got 10 laps to go. The top 4 are clearly all in that fuel save world. It looks like Kyle England is a lapped car hanging with them, but it's the 10 of Jua, the 24 of East Swan, the 14 of Mazur, and the 41 of Steinberg all hanging together. Ryan Steinberg, by the way, like we said, subbing for Tyler Glass, 0 for 82 in his OMA career, looking to finally get to victory lane here. And he's had some speed, got on the pole, had some trouble a few laps in, but has worked his way back up as the lap car Kevin Urguez kind of shuffled Casey Masser a little bit. Didn't do a great job there of getting out of the way of the 24 and the 14. He loses a lot of time. And looking at pit road, I don't think anybody else is coming in at the moment. Tim Moore and Logan Fielder are clearly saving. They are drafting together a little further back. Parker Ness come down pit road. Ben Smith as well. I think Pukalon did. Jonah Yohanan as well. Potentially Ryan Mineker. But that's how it all looks right now. But the lead pack that everybody's got to be watching as we come to 7 laps until halfway, this time at the line. You've got Jua in first, Eastwan second, and Eastwan's going to signal. He drops down on the backstretch, so he is not saving. He will not make it. So it's the 3 teammates for Spooky Dookie that will be together. Jua, Masser, and Steinberg, looking like they're all trying to save gas.
I believe as well the other 2 cars we need to tack into this as well. You just mentioned them would be him and Logan as well. I don't know exactly where Logan stands in terms. I'm going to assume he's on the lead lap. He has had a rough night though. He's been involved in at least 2, I think 3 incidents tonight, all different incidents. But I think he's stayed on the lead lap through all that, so it's good. Guys, with Tim here saving, both of these guys know how to do this as well, very well actually. So I expect these 2 will probably be your battle for 4th and 5th if they end up battling each other. So I expect these 5 cars, the 3 that you mentioned, the 3 Spooky Dookie cars, they are going to be your top 3, whatever order that may come in. If they decide to start racing one another later. Tim and Logan here, though, I expect those 2 to just kind of ride here, get their fuel saving done. They haven't had the benefit the entire time, especially Tim, of being in a pack this whole way around. Again, Tim was in a slightly better position than some of these guys because he went in and topped off under the caution. But he still did have to save. He wasn't good. He was still at least 2, maybe 3 laps short, and that was something he's going to have to save. He didn't have the pack with him the entire time he was out on the racetrack, though. That kind of hurt him a little bit compared to his other guys. I think he'll still be able to do it easily. But actually, I believe Logan goes by.
Bryce, I want to jump in. Drew pitted, the 41 pitted. Master stayed out an extra lap. He's down pit road now. So I'm watching everybody come by, and I don't think Wesley Farrell is saving. I think this could play into the hands potentially of who you were talking about, Tim Moore and Logan Fielder. So the 3 Fords there clearly didn't have enough to save, and it looks like the 74 is going to come by on the front straightaway through 1 and 2, and that should put Tim Moore in front. There's trouble. Looks like everybody's going to gather it up for now.
That was
dangerous.
I thought he was going to get sandwiched as well. Tim went through the middle of the car merging, and somebody on the outside. I thought he was going to get sandwiched in the middle. That was that was sketchy for me. And then I didn't even see what happened behind him.
Yeah, it was. Kevin Urguez, who has had some trouble here as a lapper a couple of times, made some contact with Eastwan earlier and Master in there. Tim Moore kind of got kind of, like you said, sandwich, because Urguez was slow on the outside. Miniker was coming off pit road on the bottom, but that should cycle Tim Moore to the lead. I don't know necessarily beyond that. It may be Parker Ness in second at the moment. I don't think so, though. I think he came down pit road, so that would mean Logan Fielder is in second place. Tim Moore,
Where
I
is
think,
Fielder?
is the only...
He actually is no longer with Tim either. I don't know where he went.
He's on the front stretch. He's at the start-finish line, so he's well behind Moore. He may have had to back off to save a little bit because I'm pretty sure he's been saving fuel here this whole time. That's the difference, like we said, and we mentioned it. When they had the caution at lap 66, Tim very heads up pitted when they said there was going to be one more lap, and he came down pit road, the only one to top off. And here coming to the white flag, 1 lap to go here till this lap 100 caution, and Tim Moore is in front of the field and looking to cruise to a halfway bonus and 5 more points for Moore, who has had another stellar season, missed the Daytona 250, but won at Chicago, finished second at Richmond. Not really surprising with what he's been able to do, but Tim Moore here coming to the stripe. He's going to end up taking the halfway bonus here. Stage 2 at the line will go to the 74.
Indeed, and I just want to go ahead while we wait for these other top 5 to cycle through. Actually, we probably got to figure out who those are because, again, the other thing too, with all those late pit stops, that also actually probably cycled at least maybe some of the spooky dookie cars out of the top 5. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe it didn't. But because so many guys had already been down pit road, the fact that those guys came in late, we'll have to wait and see. They were definitely probably lapped unless they maybe just took a splash and go. We'll have to wait and see what this top 5 looks like. But Eddie, we're not going to be done talking about fuel strategy either. We'll talk about it more in a minute after these guys head down pit road to get their service for this third segment. And I promise you, these last 100 laps, you're going to come down and get fuel now. You're not guaranteed. This is the last guaranteed caution. Not saying we won't get more, but we knew we were going to get at least these 2. And we've had a few more besides that during this. I think we're up to 4 in total, 2, maybe 5, 2 or 3 for incident, and then, of course, now these 2 for the halfways. But we have 100 laps, about 99 to go now in this race. That's a long way still. We are just past halfway in this this Stars and Stripes 250. Or, sorry, 300. What am I saying? It's 250. But regardless, Eddie, there's still some more things to be decided, and one of those is going to be fuel strategy. I know we talked pre-race about it, but while these guys are pitting, let's break this down. So you get 30 on fuel, right? We're going to be going green probably with about 97, 98 to go. There's a little bit of a window here, but you pit, let's say, we're just going to say it's 100 laps in total. We'll do the other math later. 100 laps in total. You're looking at pitting at 30 and 60. Those are your 2 pit windows. Well, what's that mean? You pit at 60, that means you still have 40 laps to go. You get 30 on fuel. You'd have to make a pit stop around 10 laps to go to be able to make it to the end. You could not make it from there. However, if you save and you can split this up over the course of these runs, you have more runs to split it up over, you would have to save about 10 laps of fuel. Whether you do that 5, 5, 3, 3, and 4, or something, however you want to do that, you can save that. Now as well, you're going to cut off about 2 laps here because of the pace lap. So you now really, I think, only have to save about 8 laps of fuel. So whether you want to do 2, 2, and 3, however you want to split that up, you have to save fuel, though, to try to cut out an extra pit stop. And I think that's going to be key, even here from the drop of the green for this half. Again, this is all assuming we go green that day. I know that's a lot, but it is very important follow based on the way this segment just wrapped up with Tim getting that.
So Tim got half. I got to go through a couple things quickly. Halfway, Tim, Drew, Chad Eastwan, Casey Master, Kyle England. Casey Master's out of the race now. Wizards are on. Got to cheer on Bradley Beal in the game. So he was only racing the first half anyway. That was the intended plan. That's why he didn't really. We didn't know if he was racing or not until the bitter end. But he showed up, got himself some points. He finishes 15th, so not a terrible day. Got himself points in the second segment as well. So a decent day for the 14, led some laps as well. But he is out, and we are back green now with 14 cars in the race. I think everybody's back on the lead lap. Gavin Hudspeth may still be a lap down. He had gotten shuffled back, but everybody else, I think, is definitively on the lead lap. Drew Jua in the 10, now leading the Arsenal for his team to the lead. Ben Smith up into the wall, contact with Ryan Miniker. Parker Ness trying to make a move. Drew is your leader. They are 3 wide in a big hornet's nest towards the back. Kukulon, Urquez, Fielder, Yohanan, they're all battling for about 8th, 9th, 10th position right now. And it's getting kind of dicey back there here as we come to lap 104. Urquez is going to block Kukulon a bit. Now Kukulon's going to look to the outside. That's going to be for, I think, 10th place at the moment in the running order. Yes, that is. So for 10th place right now, Kukulon versus Urquez to get into the back of the top 10. And everybody staying together in this draft, now all with even tires, all willing to push it to the limit. Wesley Farrell is going to get back into the picture now up front. Someone else, Parker Ness, who ran well at the 1.5 miles last season, but hasn't done much so far this season. He's going to move into 5th place underneath Farrell. Farrell goes high, but it's Jua first, Steinberg second, Tim Moore third as they work it to lap 105.
Indeed, now you start to see a little bit contrary to how we saw kind of the first two, the initial start of the race and then, of course, the restart after lap 50. A little bit different. They were much more aggressive after those 2 restarts. It hasn't been this way so far this round. It's been a lot calmer. Still some racing going on, obviously. But especially, you look up towards the front of this field, I say that as Tim Moore gets pressured for position, but they are a lot calmer up here than what they were in those first couple of segments. And I have to think, Eddie, that's because they are aware that, look, we were guaranteed options. On those restarts at some point. So if something happened, we could, kind of rebound in some sort of way later on. You don't have that now, so you got to be more cautious if you still want to be in contention for this thing in another 95 months. I think that's going to be the key. Is now it's a race of survival. Again, this is a very long race. Fatigue is probably going to be something that starts to affect these drivers, especially considering some of these guys already. We know Gavin is one of those guys. I personally, as a driver, this is not one of my favorite tracks. A lot of guys have mixed opinions on this place. Some love it, some hate it, and in between. How difficult this place can be, especially with 3 and 4, and the handling aspects of that, and then just how long it is. There's probably going to be some fatigue and some frustration that maybe start to affect these guys towards the end of this race a little bit more than maybe it would in a regular race. Look, even though this is a video game and we're not behind the wheel of an actual stock car or whatever, I can tell you what right now, being in the same spot, sitting in the same place for 200 laps, and staring at the same screen doing the same thing for probably 2 hours at minimum, look, that still takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
Mentally. And your eyes get tired, your fingers get tired. If you're using a wheel, your arms get tired, things like that. There is still fatigue to this. Obviously, we're only doing half the distance, but there's still a fatigue factor because this race is so long. You're going to start to see that factor, and I think, too, probably within the final 50 laps of this race. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a whole lot when this race gets run, but definitely something that should be brought up.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and this is still, not too cliche, but it is the longest race, and the Coke 600, no matter what iteration it is, it's still a test, and no matter what form it's run for any of these drivers, and going so long, the other 1.5 mile race was 134 laps at Chicago, so tack on another 66 laps to that, and that's the distance here. So Wesley Farrell right now is in the lead. An update, by the way, from Race Control. They have not handed out any aggressive driving penalties. They had said they were going to enforce them more starting tonight, but 3 drivers they said that they will be keeping an eye on are your leader, Wesley Farrell, the 18 of Ben Smith, and the 77 of Ryan Mineker. But the quote from one of the officials is, quote, none of them have been too extreme. Speaking of a little extreme there, looked like the 42 of Parker Ness got into the 41 of Ryan Steinberg, moved him up out of the groove. He's going to lose about 4 or 5 spots, so put Steinberg back in 6th place. It's Farrell first, Parker Ness second, Jua Moore Eastward on the top 5, then the 41 is 6th, Kukulon 7th, Kevin Urquez is 8th, and then everybody else is singled out and out of that main draft a little bit further back. But everybody sort of single file right now, being a bit conservative, and I think it's important right now not to do anything crazy. 91 laps left in the race. Actually, no, 88. I can't do math. There's no reason to be doing anything too crazy at this point.
No, definitely not. And I think we're starting to see that in these drivers. I talked about pre-race, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, how I might have to eat my words. It looked like I was eating my words. Well, maybe not so much, or maybe not now, because now if you look, talked about earlier, I didn't think you were going to be able to use the lanes as much as these guys were earlier. I thought it was going to be relatively single file. Well, they proved me wrong in the first half, but now as we see us get into the second half, I see a lot more guys just kind of trying to paint that line, not get too far off of it. I see some side-by-side here and there, but I see a lot more single file than I do side-by-side at this point, and I think that's part of it. These guys know there's a long way to go, and if I am going to have a shot at getting a good finish, I need to be here when that ending gets here. Doing something crazy right now, not being guaranteed a caution to save me, that could take me out of contention on a lot of points. So I think that's probably why you're seeing things be so much calmer. You're seeing a lot more guys do what I had predicted and what I had been used to saying here, which is just kind of run around that inside line, paint it, just try to stay as close to that and as conservative as I could possibly be while still being competitive. That's what we're seeing now, Eddie.
So Wesley Farrell is in front right now. Interesting story with Farrell because at the beginning of free agency, the long-term plan was that he was going to be going to Dark Horse Racing to be the centerpiece of that team before it turned out Tim Moore was available, and he ended up joining that team. And then he ends up going to Ohio River Racing, which is an interesting scenario as well. A complete changeover for that team, complete rebranding. They used to be Hoffman Family Racing as Farrell gets challenged by his teammate Parker Ness. Ness is co-owning with Riley Goff over at Ohio River Racing. The third driver is Jonah Yohanan. Goff himself, lots of experience in the VRC. There's a little contact between Jua and Ness. Jua's going to slide up the track a little bit. But it's interesting, the decision by Riley Goff. He said he was going to miss a couple of races this season just because the season was being run in the winter during the holidays and all that. But so he decided to sit out the season as a full-timer running part-time and instead give these guys the opportunity to compete for the championship. He's going to be back next season full-time in the VRC. But Goff here making the diplomatic decision as a team owner to do what's best for his team and get guys out there who can race all 10 races, even though it's undeniable how good Goff is, with wins each of the last 2 seasons and finishing, I think, 3rd and 4th in the points over the last 2 seasons as well.
Oh, indeed. You look at, and I want to highlight on this as well, because I've been able to see a lot more of this first person, not only outside of the league with how good Goff is, but also even within kind of this area, this banner. Although Extra's not directly underneath OMA anymore, it is still within the same kind of part of the world, so to speak. I have actually had the honor to be able to start up my team there this season, and we've done okay. But something that I have really noticed, Goff has not been, he's been part-time racing in OMA, but he has been full-time in Extra Pro. And he has a massive points lead, and he just continues, even if he's not winning every race. In fact, Vincent DiPizzo has actually been on one heck of a streak as of late. But you look at Goff, he has a massive points lead. He's been extremely consistent down there. He's gotten a couple wins, I think, up to this point. Obviously, it's just, again, how much speed he has is insane, and I have been able to witness that firsthand as a team owner, watching my drivers race him, watching the races for myself, trying to keep an eye on my guys. I see where Goff runs down there, and he's still full-time, but it's just not in the OMA. Again, like you said, Eddie, he's running part-time, just trying to get in races where he can, and pro works good for him this season, so that's where he's at, and he is setting the world on fire down there right now.
Yeah, he is. He's doing a great job down there in the Xbox Truck Racing Association, a development league for the VRC. And right now his team is looking pretty good. Ohio River Racing 1-2 with 80 laps to go. A crash in the back. Looks like one car apparently wrecked. That's the word. Not sure who it was. Slow back there. Looked like the 2-car of Hudspeth. I think he may have been involved. Hudspeth is having a bad day. Ben Smith potentially as well. And Parker Ness continuing the lead. It's Farrell second, Jua third, the Ford A1 Steinberg fourth, and Sebastian Kukulon has worked his way into the top 5. Very quiet so far today. Kukulon had his first top 5 of the season last week at Richmond, came home P4, and it looks like Sebi's starting to get into a bit of a groove. A quiet start. Looks like Tim Moore might get around him eventually, but he's hanging up in that lead group right now in that number 12.
Indeed, and speaking of somebody else who's been pretty quiet, at least up to this point, is actually, not in terms of the race overall, but in terms of, since we've started the second half here, is Tim. Tim's been running kind of about, I'd say, between the 5th to 8th positions. It's just been very quiet, very smooth. Hasn't really tried to make too many moves. We know he's got winning speed, I think. Um, he's definitely got top 3 speed, but he's just been very quiet. Now, starting to try to go get around Sebi, but he's just been very quiet tonight so far, or at least in the second half. Just kind of letting things come to him. Again, he could be saving fuel right now, maybe. We don't know. That's definitely a topic of discussion again. We'll have to start talking about that more later on when pit stop starts to come around, which, speaking of which, we shouldn't be too terribly far from. Again, we have 30 lap pit window. These guys should be able to pit, I'd say, with about 78, 68 to go, rather, somewhere in that area. So you look at that. We'll see guys on pit road very soon, and that's going to be something then where we kind of start to see where do guys' pit strategies start to fall. Because if you're not saving, then there's a little bit of an ability to maybe try to short pit. Actually, there's a large ability to try to short pit, because again, you're only about 8 laps short on fuel for making that third stop. So if you know you're not going to save fuel, Eddie, at this point, you got to maybe try to get ahead of the game a little bit, try to come down pit road, get some fresher tires to gain more time that way, try to even out your tire runs, however you decide to do that. So we could see guys on pit road, we could have seen guys on pit road as early as 8-10 laps into this. Now, obviously, we didn't see that, but point is, you can pit now. It's just a matter of when do these guys start pitting. Now, if you're saving, you're going to run your fuel as far as you possibly can during this first segment, 30, 32, 33, 34 laps even. So it's a matter of when does everybody pit, and I think the first round of pit stops is going to be very crucial. It could be to kind of how we see things start to fall even later on in this race.
I think we might be seeing some pit stops. Looked like the 7 just signaled. You've got a 7-car lead group. It's Farrell, Jua, Ness, the 41 of Steinberg, Kukulon, Moore, and Eastwan. But Farrell will be the first to pit here as they come to lap 128, which is 72 laps to go. So Farrell will come down pit road. The other 6 stay out. Looking around the rest of the pack, Ben Smith stays out. England, Johanen staying on the track at the moment as well. Fielder, the 95 of Uruguayas, are out there. Miniker too, as is Hudspeth. So the only driver to pit there is that car of Farrell. The 2 cars out of the race, like we said, Ike Shelley lagged out lap 33. Casey Master had to go cheer on the hapless Washington Wizards after lap 100. So he got 4th in the second stage, and he finishes 15th, Shelley, and 16th. So the leaders all staying out right now. So Farrell with a big-time undercut and doesn't go with his teammates either, and it looks like the whole rest of the field is still staying out. So he pitted a full 2 laps earlier than anybody else. Again, the leaders are going to be working towards turns 3 and 4. Will we see anybody coming down this time from the lead group? No, we won't. So Farrell will be at least 3 laps ahead of the curve in terms of pitting. So a big-time undercut, Bryce. Do you think that kind of move, as extreme as it is here, could potentially be a winning move here for the 7 team?
Well, again, I think the fuel saving is probably going to be the winning move. In terms of what he's doing, had other cars come in, on the same lap as him, 2 laps later, yes. But I think now, while he's going to short term, he's going to have a massive gain off of this. Long term, again, we saw that how this worked out for him when he did it earlier over Tim Moore, who just went, I think, maybe 2 more laps than him. The tire advantage, he got ran down very quickly and was, not long after he got ran down, passed for the lead. So, now he's going to be at even more of a tire disadvantage. I haven't seen a whole lot of guys, if any more, come down pit road even since then. So I definitely think Wesley he's going to have a short-term gain. He's probably going to get the lead by a pretty hefty margin, but now we start to see more pit stops. But he's going to get run down pretty quickly because he's putting laps on these tires now, and once these guys come in and get 4, he's also now going to be at a disadvantage to them. So he'll get run down pretty quickly. Probably this actually, I don't know, it could help him, it could also hurt him. It's kind of like a seesaw effect. It just depends on where the gaps cycle out for him, and how long it takes the tires to kind of level off. Because there is a point where they're better than they do actually level off. So he's also just really got to survive to that point.
Busy place on pit road right now. Eastwan is out. Ness, Kukulon, Ben Smith pulls in. Logan Fielder is in. Miniker just came off pit road. Tim Moore and Jua and Steinberg all still staying out. We'll see if maybe they'll be coming down. I think Steinberg just signaled on the backstretch. Just missed the end of that. Not 100% sure as they'll come through. This is now 7 laps later than Wesley Farrell pitted, and it's going to be Steinberg, actually 6 laps for Farrell. Farrell pitted at the beginning of 126. This is the beginning of lap 132. Steinberg is down. Tim Moore and Drew is still out there. Ben Smith coming off. Uruguay's pitted. Fielder pitted. Yohanan pitted. I think Gavin Hudspeth came down pit road. Not 100% sure on him. He may be the only other straggler who has not come down pit road yet. And just as I say that, the 2-car takes the hard left turn. So it's down to just Tim and Drew out there who are still hanging around, the 2 of them, awaiting a chance to come down pit road. The 41 of Steinberg, like we said, is in. Tim Moore is still on track. Drew Jua is now on pit road. So Jua, Steinberg, Moore, and Farrell are on 4 different pit strategies and maybe the 4 strongest cars left in this race, which means we could get a very interesting finish if this race stays green. Moore, again, as is typically the strategy with him, he stays out the longest. He's going to lose a lot of track position now, but of course will be able to stick it out much longer. And now coming to the line and what I think is 132 or 133. They kind of lost count a little bit with the officials, but he should be able now, once he pits here, to make it on one more stop if he follows this strategy of saving about 3 extra laps, going 33 laps instead of 30. That takes you 133, 166, right near the end, 199, 200. So he might be able to do this, and Tim Moore here finally will come down pit road. So once this is all over, Wesley Farrell should be the one cycling out to the lead. He has a sizable gap over second place right now, which is the 12 of Sebastian Kukulon. Parker Ness is back there in third. Eastwan in third. Ness in fourth. Jua chasing ahead. He's in sixth. Fifth place is Ryan Steinberg.
Indeed, and I do want to kind of collide these together a little bit because it sounds like there's a lot going on, and there is. But let's kind of blend this together a little bit. So initially, with the caution laps, and this is a little bit of an estimation on my part in terms of where they could have made it to base fuel number without saving anything. I'm looking, they probably could have made it, I think, like I said, about to 67, 68 to go. Somewhere within that vicinity of laps is probably where they could have made it. That would have been about 30 laps on fuel, depending on how much saving they did under caution, just to kind of get maybe a little bit further. If you get further than, I'm going to say 68, you were trying to save somewhat. Maybe even 67. If you went further than that, you were trying to save somewhat. Tim obviously was on that. I think Gavin was on that, trying to get in that window a little bit. Stein might have been on that window a little bit. Drew was within that a little bit, but Tim is definitely looking the best out of that group to save. Now, as far as Wesley, he pitted about 4 laps earlier than what he necessarily had to. So that's a big short pit alone. Again, he could have gone to about 67 to go, and he pitted with 72 to go, Eddie. That's about 4 to 5 laps difference alone. So that's why you saw so many guys go longer. But again, I talked about as well, look, if he knows he's not going to save, you may want to go try something bold in terms of a short pit to try to kind of level off your stuff a little bit, so you don't feel like you're making almost as much of a waste of a pit stop when you have to pit late because you have to take a little bit more. But that's just kind of a theory. But there's a lot going on. Probably about realistically 3 different strategies right now. There's kind of what Wesley's doing with the short pit. There's the guys that are running the fuel about to the end of its course, maybe just a bit further. And then there's, of course, what Tim's doing. And then there's kind of guys that are floating really in the middle of just running the fuel to dry and trying to save and run longer than where you typically would. So there's kind of guys basically teetering between, say, where Tim is doing his pitting and where, say, somebody like a Kukulon or one of those guys is doing. So there's about 3 strategies, and then there's some guys that are kind of lost in between exactly which one they want to fall on, and that might be because of circumstance. So, very long explanation, but there is a lot going on, Eddie. So that's kind of to get everybody up and just to clear things as to where everything is cycling right now and what the outlook is.
Yeah, so those guys that we mentioned Tim Moore, of course, he lasted the longest. He obviously is the furthest back, but he's got a long way to go. He's in 8th place right now, so he lost a lot of track position in that cycle.
Got better
like
tires.
On top of that, he and Drew may not have had the best pit stops either. You've got Drew Jua in front of him in 7th, Steinberg 6th. Then you got Hudspeth sitting there in 5th place right now. Not too fast. He's going to move up to the outside. Then the 2nd through 4th place cars have now caught Wesley Farrell. Now they hit later than Farrell, but still earlier by about 2 laps from Steinberg, 3 from Jua, and 5 from Moore. And Farrell was 2 whole laps above these 3. But you've got Iswan, Ness, and Kukulon all on the same strategy. They're battling for 2nd at the moment as they all battle it out up here, getting side by side for the lead. Farrell is on the outside. He's held them off pretty strong so far, but it's looking like finally he's getting that pressure coming. And it's Iswan in the 24 moving up in front of the 42. Too much contact. Parker Ness goes up into the wall. Needs to save it. Almost goes in the grass. What a save by the 42. He's going to fall back to 4th. Ness just got pinched there by Chad Iswan and nearly wrecked.
I tell you what, if that had been a caution, that would have completely sent alarms off in several drivers' heads. So I think they are all loving Parker Ness right now for being able to save that car, because that could have shaken this whole race and turned everything upside down. But regardless, huge save. And I'll tell you what too, look, you want to do that coming off corners. It is definitely sketchy to do that, especially coming out of turn 4 here, because the car likes to get very light out of that corner. That's usually the area where if you're going to get loose, really loose, it'll be right there. So when you get pinched down there to that grass, especially too, of course they had the Charlotte Roval here, that chicane, that bus stop, whatever you want to call it, is still here during the 600 on the front stretch. And there are some curbing areas that you can actually hit where that is. And I don't know if maybe he got pushed on that. I know you can. I've seen some guys hit those before by accident and take hard hits into the outside wall and spin. So again, turn 4 can be a little bit sketchy here, and if you're racing hard side by side, definitely moments like what we saw Parker have with a massive save and a big sideways moment definitely can happen. It's a difficult corner, but really anywhere on this track, especially you get into runs, you start getting wear, things start to get a little bit more sketchy in terms of the handling.
And speaking of sketchy, that 7 car is looking a little laggy on my end, but he's hanging on to the lead. Looked like Parker Ness, his teammate, kind of maybe got bubbled a little bit behind him and lost the draft, but he comes back. And now the 24, they're 3 wide for 2nd. Iswan gets pushed up the track. That was kind of crazy. Shocked they didn't wreck. And it seems like as this is all happening, you've got 3 very well lined up cars behind in Steinberg, Moore, and Jua running 5th, 6th, and 7th at the moment that are slowly catching up. Jonah Yolhanen is hanging on to that group, as is Logan Fielder. That's 5th through 9th, and they are undoubtedly gaining some time and gaining some pace on this crazy group 4 up front. They're just not getting organized whatsoever. Now to the inside goes Chad Iswan looking for the lead underneath the 7. We are on lap 146. We've got 54 to go in the Stars and Stripes 300. And the 24, it looks like Wesley Farrell may finally get past. Now Parker Ness to the inside looking under Farrell. Kukulon is back to 4th. It looks like Wesley Farrell, who has had a valiant effort to hang up there, looks like finally he may tip the hat and let these guys go by, or not, because he's going to get right back to the bumper of the 24 and look to the outside, looking to carry some momentum. They are still 2x2 side by side, and this is just playing so well into the hands of the 41, the 10, and the 74, who not only have the advantage in terms of tires right now, but are gaining so much more exponentially because these guys just cannot get single filed out.
Indeed, and it's more impressive too, Eddie. Look, remember this. I don't think everybody in this group, if any of them, are pushing either. They're conserving. We know at least 2 out of the 3 in this group are conserving a bit. We know Tim is. I think Drew probably is. I don't know exactly where Steinberg stands there in the 41. I don't know exactly what track he's on. I think he might just be one of those guys that's just trying to get the fuel to kind of run dry, but I don't know that he's going much further than that. I think Drew is trying to maybe go a little bit further, and of course we've documented several times Tim is trying to go much further to try to definitely cut out that 3rd pit stop. But not everybody in this pack is pushing their car to 100%, and they're still catching. So it makes me wonder how much more could these guys be gaining if they were pushing all the way. I think that's something that's got to be thought about as well. It just shows the pace these guys have and how hard these top three are racing one another.
4 wide for the lead coming to the start-finish line. Farrell went wide, the 24 dips underneath Kukulon. Now they'll organize, but they fanned out 4 wide for the lead coming to the start-finish line. Parker Ness is going to come out of that with the lead. Farrell went way to the outside. Ness and Eastwan had a similar idea. Eastwan ducked underneath Kukulon, and they were 4 wide for a moment. And like I said, that racing is not helping them because you have 4 guys who are very, very well working together right there.
Cue the jostling.
Yeah, this is all this jostling is just letting them gain so much time, and they already have the tire advantage. They already have probably the better pit strategy, and these 3 really, Ness, Kukulon, and Eastwan, who had the tire advantage on Farrell, have not been able to get past him. Farrell still hasn't gone to the back of this group. He's hanging in there for second. Kukulon just cannot get by. Also, somehow, Sebastian Kukulon, when I asked in race control what lap it was, he somehow typed what lap it was while he's driving up there battling for second. So
that's impressive.
Shows some of the multitasking these guys can do. But Kukulon's in 4th right now. You've got these 2 4-car groups, and getting a little fuel update because, of course, it's looking like we could be heading down for a wild fuel mileage finish to the Stars and Stripes 300. Lap 153, Wesley dips down, so he's going to be pitting here for his second stop. So now let's see how this spreads out, Bryce, because let's see how much longer, because it seems like now even earlier. He pitted at 127 earlier. Now he goes only 26 laps, so he is going much shorter for the fresher tires. Signaling he's really burning things out pretty fast so far for that number 7 Chevy.
Indeed, but I will say this, now, again, he's not going to win because I think at the very least Tim is going to be able to make this 2-stop strategy work versus the 3. There's maybe some question marks about Drew and Stein. Again, I don't know exactly where they stand, but I can tell you Tim will more than likely, unless something drastic happens to him, as actually he looks for a position here, but he's going to probably be able to make this work pretty easily based on how far he went just that first stint. He'll try that again here. But as for Wesley, out of the group he was in with Chad and with Sebi and some of those guys, he actually did very well for himself because I think he got into that window where the advantage that those guys had on him for tires compared to his short pit had him at a slight disadvantage after they pitted. I think he got into that point where it leveled off, and I think that's why you were seeing, guys like Sebi, for example, struggle to get around him. It's because they just really simply didn't have that advantage to the extent of what it was anymore. It kind of had leveled off, which I had talked about was going to be something that would happen. And I think now Wesley going down again, trying to short pit even more. Again, look, he's still going to have to pit again, and that's where you're going to see this race really change hands is when we get around the area of that 3rd pit stop. He's setting himself up. He will have to make that 3rd pit stop earlier, but he also has a window for it because, again, he was only about 8 laps short straight up if you go back to the start of this second half with the pace laps we ran. He was only about 8 laps short on fuel. So he had the window there to work with because you were going to have to come in regardless if you weren't saving, which he already knew ahead of time. He wasn't going to. So I like this. He'll be able to come in here and again, pull probably an even larger lead than what he had before. We'll have to see where this puts him at later on and compared to everything else. But either way, things have gotten very interesting. But that is definitely very early short pit there. Because, again, I expect most everybody else in between laps and lap 63. So, at least if you're not saving. Or 163, sorry.
Yeah. So right now, Kevin Urguez is the 2nd car to pit, but it has now been 5 laps since Wesley Farrell went down pit road, and none of the other leaders have gotten their service. So it was a 3-lap difference between him and these 3, Ness, Kukulon, and Eastwan earlier. Now it's spread out even more. Parker Ness dips down to signal. Kukulon and Eastwan, I think, were both trying to signal at the same time and made some contact. I assume all 3 of them are probably going to pit together right here. Let's see. The 77 of Miniker, a lapped car peels down. Kukulon stays out, so Kukulon's going to go an extra lap. So he splits up from those 2 Chevys. Put the 12 now in front of the field with 40 laps to go.
Indeed, and again, you have to look as well Now we start to take a peek back as well, because I want to also keep an eye again what Steinberg does in the 41 and what Drew does, because I wasn't exactly able to keep an eye on what they were doing the first round. So I think Sebi's probably going to maybe short pit by 1 lap from what he could go, or run his fuel tank dry. We'll have to see where this stands for the other two guys that are kind of a little bit further back here, but I don't think are quite on the same level of fuel saving range as far as what Tim was that first run. And again, Tim's going to try to do that again. I expect Tim in probably around lap 66, 67 maybe even, depending on when he decides to save that one other extra lap that he needs. So you put that into account. We'll have to wait and see, because I'm very curious to know where Drew and Steinberg both stand on their strategies as well compared to Tim.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this sorts out with those two specifically, because they've been keeping pace with Tim Moore so far. Steinberg's going to pit right here, so Steinberg is in. So the 41 is getting his service, as to be expected. Jua is now staying out with Tim. Now you wonder, since those guys were drafting together for so long and not really pushing it too much, was Jua able to save enough fuel to maybe put himself in the same picture as Tim Moore? Could both of them be on a similar strategy? Could Jua have saved up a little bit? You've got Kyle England there pushing behind them. He already pitted, so he's not really a factor. I think he had gone a lap down anyway. He was running around 12th or 13th place, disregarding all of the fuel strategy. But we're coming here, looks like 162, 163 for these leaders. The race control will get back to the lap count once it fully cycles out. But if this is 163, which I'm pretty sure it is, and yes, got confirmation, 9-lap difference now between these guys and Wesley Farrell. It's really crazy to see, Bryce, how these guys have been able to adapt and try different things here in this race. But now Tim Moore, if they can go another 2 laps or so, you're really thinking that they can probably make it to the end here if they follow along. Jua looks low a little bit. He's going to stay out, so to 165 now. 35 laps to go for these two, Tim Moore and Drew Jua. Bryce, do you think if they make it here to 33 to go, maybe if they go 2 more laps, do you think you're in the safe realm that they can make it to the end?
I think so, and I do want to point out, I was wondering about Stein. So Stein will have to pit again. I can confirm that. So out of that group of 3 that we saw drafting there, Stein cannot make it. The 41 will have to come back down pit road. But now you look at his team owner, teammate, team owner, Drew, and of course Tim. Yeah, I think if you go 66, you're going to probably have to save about 4 laps or so more on the last run. If you can get, say, about 167 and pit with about 32, come to 32 to go, so coming to 168, you'll be in a lot better position there. So we'll have to wait and see what these guys do here, because ideally, if it was me, I'd like to try to save that extra, so those extra 4 laps of fuel instead of the 3. You're going to have to save 4 laps at some point on this, because right now saving 3, 3, and 3 would only get you to 99, but you got to go 1 more lap than that at the end of the race. So,
contact! Kyle England. Wesley Farrell is trying to push it to get around Tim Moore and Drew Jua, but he just booted the 8 of Kyle England. He's going to get clear of them. So that was interesting right there. Now here comes Jua into the pits, and Kyle England. England rams into the back of Jua as they came into the pits. They both came in hard, but it looks like Kyle England and Drew Jua both are all right after that. 32 laps remaining. Gavin Hudspeth also pitted, so he lasted long, but he's not really in the picture because he just hasn't been very good tonight. But he has saved a decent amount of gas. Drew Jua, their tangles with Kyle England coming in. I think England was a lapped car from where I'd seen he was running. He hasn't been up there that much tonight. He won the Clash, but then after a solid 250, England has struggled a bit here in his VRC rookie campaign, driving for Dark Horse Racing. But Tim Moore is out there right now still, awaiting that final pit stop. Jua and England will come out of the pits right now. Jua is going to move to the outside, trying to get past Kyle England as quickly as he possibly can, and that's what he's going to do. Moore hanging in. There'll be 30 laps to go here. Actually, 31 laps to go. And yeah, he is lasting a long time here on fuel. The question really is, did Drew Jua save enough? We saw him stretch it by a couple laps. He pitted there on lap 168, so 33 to go. Does he have enough? He's going to have the track position. Will he have enough to make it? Moore's looking at the inside.
So,
I assume this is when he's going to pit here.
Well, let's walk through. Yeah, here comes Tim down pit road now. He's backing down a little bit. He's running a little bit slower through there. So, yeah, he's going to come in here, I think. Well, maybe not. But, so he's going to stay. Let me tell you what's going on here. I didn't know Tim was going to do this, but it's not surprising to me. This was definitely an option he had. I just didn't talk about it much. So, Drew, yes, he can save on this last run and make it. He should not have to pit again. Unless he can't find enough draft to save, and then he has to make an emergency pit stop late in this race, which would really hurt him. I think same thing for... Excuse me, here comes Tim, but same thing for Gavin as well, who I think could actually probably still, despite his struggles tonight, maybe squeak out a top 5, top 6 finish with this. Even though he hasn't quite had the pace and luck tonight that some of these other guys have. But they still have to save. What Tim has done here, actually, he is on pit road now. He's going to come in. He's going to get these 4 tires filled up with fuel. He is done saving, Eddie. He does not have to save at all on this last run, contrary to what both Drew and Gavin would have to do, for example. Yes, they can both probably make it without pitting again, but they're going to have to save fuel still. Tim, not only once he comes off pit road here, which he's doing now, doesn't pit again, but he also doesn't have to save any more fuel. He's within the 30-lap pit window. He's good to go. He can push this car all the way to the end of the race now. And I think that's where the difference is.
Yeah, that's an important point, because Jua still has to have a little bit of hesitance. He's got to make sure he has enough fuel, because he, as much as he'd love to win, a second-place finish is a lot bigger than finishing 12th or 13th when you have to make a pit stop where you weren't expecting it at the end. But we have cycled all the way through. It's lap 172 at the line, I think, 173 potentially. I'm waiting on the official word from the officials. But Parker Ness is now your leader. Wesley Farrell, who pitted almost 20 laps ago. So we're already almost in the realm where he's going to be considering pitting. So the pit window's now. Yeah, the pit window is going to open again in about 3-4 laps for Farrell. But it's Parker Ness in front in that 42. Ohio Racing is 1-2. Third place is Eastwan, then Yohanan, then Kukulan. None of those 5 can make it towards the end. They all pitted with at least 37 laps to go. Behind those 5, it looks like it's Drew Jua in 6th place. Ryan Steinberg is a little bit further back. Tim Moore is there as well. Actually, Steinberg is ahead of both Jua and Moore. So Steinberg is in 6th. It's Jua 7th. Tim Moore is in 8th, and that's how it looks right now. It's a long gap for Jua and Moore. They're almost half a lap down, but none of that really matters for them because they know it's going to, in the end, settle down to be between the 74 and the 10, just like it was last week. But for right now, Parker Ness running well. I mean, based on all the strategies, good chance that he could maybe sneak out a 3rd-place finish if he stays ahead of all these guys, which would be a big-time points day for the 42, who's been struggling a bit so far this season. But he and Farrell, the Ohio River Racing teammates, have sort of distanced themselves here from everyone else with 25 laps to go.
Indeed. Well, I do want to say as well, there is one other car that again is saving fuel, and I think I don't know that he could get top 3. We'll have to wait and see, depending on where all this cycles out. Again, your driver, McGinnis Racing number 2. He is also saving. He's kind of on. He's probably in about the same realm as Drew is. He might have to save 1 lap more. Who knows? He could also possibly save to the end. Again, about the same Drew can. He's obviously not going to be in contention for the win. He's a little bit too far back for that. But he might be able to squeak out a top 5, possibly a top 3, depending on how well he does. But now what's going to be interesting here, Eddie, is we know the battle for 7th place right now is going to end up being the battle for the win. And it's not even really much of a battle at the moment. It's just going to be a matter. Drew came out in front of Tim, but Drew has to save fuel. Can he get that? Tim does not have to save fuel. He came out behind him, though. Can Drew get that fuel saving done, or at least enough of it, and try to hold off Tim, or even before Tim catches him, to where they can actually battle it out for the win? Or is the fuel saving that Drew still has to do going to be his demise here for this win and what's going to get him a second place finish? I think that's yet to be seen, but I definitely could be shaping the end of this race up to be interesting because, again, the 41 who was in 6th, he does have to come back down pit road whenever that may be. So, again, that's going to be your battle for the win, I think, unless something crazy happens here that kind of messes all this up. But if not, it's going to be, once again, like you said, a battle between Jua and Moore. And, again, can Drew save and get enough saving done and all of it before Tim gets to him? Or even if Tim gets to him, can he hold Tim off and still get all that done? That's kind of the question mark.
So Tim has actually just passed Drew on the track. He's in front of the 10 now. Now the question is, because you mentioned it, Moore's going to be pushing it here. Can Jua keep enough of a draft on him where he's not going full throttle, he's still able to save, but keeps himself in range where he can really go for it here? He's doing that right now, at least through these first couple laps. We just don't know how much throttle that 10 is really putting. I mean, you can try and listen into the engine a little bit, but I'm trying to listen a little bit through these corners. He really backed off through turns 3 and 4, but he's going to build up a big run. Looks like he's completely full on it here. Tim Moore is weaving back and forth, I think, trying to break the draft a little bit on the on the 10, but Jua is really just completely off the gas, almost a coast through 1 and 2, and then guns it down these straightaways. So that's the strategy right now for Jua. We have 17 laps to go at the line for the leaders here. It's Parker Ness in front. He's got pressure coming from behind. Wesley Farrell has fallen back out of the picture, and he has actually come down pit road, I think. So Farrell has made his 3rd pit stop. His wild strategy didn't work, but maybe he'll be able to cycle out to a top 5 depending on how all of this happens. We don't really know, because we don't really know how this is going to work out with fuel for Jua. Moore should be able to make it. Don't really know with Jua. Don't really know exactly what's going to happen with Steinberg and when he's going to pit. Johanan is now in, so the pit window has once again opened. It feels like it just closed. But Parker Ness is in front. The 24 is 2nd right now. And then I think that sets up a 3rd place right now for Kukulon, 4th for Moore, 5th for Jua, coming to 16 to go.
Watch these guys merging too. This could cause trouble for Tim as well. We know it almost did earlier on when he kind of got sandwiched a little bit between somebody merging up. I think it actually might have been the 41, but I don't 100% remember. It was either him or the 77. I don't remember which one it was. And then between a lap car on his outside, that almost cost him. So again, you can see things like that. The other thing that Drew has as well that can help him, there's going to be a lot of lap traffic that's going to be encountered. Not only does that help him in terms of it could get in the way of Tim Moore, who did not have a very good experience with lap traffic last week, oddly enough. But also, actually, speaking of which, lap traffic is racing Tim a little bit, because keep in mind, all these cars that are coming out of the pits have better tires than Tim. So let's keep that in mind as well. This could hold Tim up, but it also could allow Drew some more drafting help to save fuel. So even if Drew doesn't have Tim's draft necessarily to save, it's not over, because if Tim gets held up in lap traffic, which he did a little bit there, and Drew can find some more draft help, whether it be from Tim if he's close enough, or from other lap cars to get his fuel done and still be able to run Tim back down, this is definitely still a battle. There's a lot now at stake here, and a lot of chess being played in terms of trying to get through lap traffic, trying to get fuel saving done. If you're Tim, just trying to hold, maintain, keep Drew out of your draft, try to take all his ability to save fuel, everything that you can that would help him, take it away. Just things like that. It's a lot of chess being played right now between these two.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this race. Typically, you'd be talking about, lap cars trying to pass each other. No, the leader's trying to get past the lap. Now the lappers are trying to pass the leaders themselves, which is making this race as crazy as it is. And you've got Parker Ness going by. Now Jonah Johanan trying to get by Tim Moore. Drew Jua backed off. I think he realized he had to save a little bit, but he's still in relative striking distance, definitely within a second of Tim Moore. And there's going to be a lot more lap traffic where that came from. Logan Fielder is approaching behind Jua right now. Sebastian Kukulon, by the way, is your leader with 13 laps to go. Gavin Hudspeth is in the pits at the moment. Actually, Gavin Hudspeth is out of the race. He has backed out, so he's going to finish in 14th, so a tough finish for the two teams. So the Lone Ranger from McGinnis Motorsports is in front right now, Sebastian Kukulon, as he's going to be coming to 12 laps to go. Kukulon does not have enough fuel to make it to the end unless some sort of crazy magic happens. The same goes for Chad Eastman, who's in second place. So the focus, of course, we really have to turn it to this battle for the lead. So you have Tim Moore, who we know has enough fuel. Kukulon comes down pit road. Chad Eastman, your new leader, 11 laps remaining in the race. So you've got Tim Moore right now. He is ahead of Drew Jua, has a gap because Jua fell behind Logan Fielder. Now, Jua has gone behind Fielder definitely to try to get a draft and also probably to save a little bit to make sure he has enough to make it to the end. But I'm starting to get the feeling, Bryce, that Drew just does not have the fuel and maybe not the car either to be able to catch up to Tim. He's going to need some help potentially from a lapper causing trouble for the 74.
Indeed, I think that's starting to be the case. Again, I do want to remind you as well that Drew did pit earlier than Tim. That's why he's still having to save, but also you look at it, Tim had a little bit better tires once he came out of the pits than Drew, and that could be a slight difference maker as well. But again, it wasn't too much of a, well, I say that actually Tim went further than Drew. I think Drew pitted, I think you said around 67 or 66 to go, Eddie. I think Tim came in around 71, so that's actually about 4 or 5 laps, 3 to 5 laps of tire difference depending on the exact numbers of that. So that actually is quite a bit of a difference. About some of what we saw Wesley actually have in terms of his tires early on in this race when he was trying short pitting. So that might be, I think, the difference maker is the tire difference, honestly. That, and again, Drew having to back down his own pace to save. Again, there's still the chance of lap traffic, but I think at this point, Drew might have to settle with a second place here unless something insane happens to Tim, which again isn't impossible. We saw that happen last week to Tim. He still finished second, but it was not as close of a second to Drew's first place as it was going to be because he got caught up in some trouble from the one and only Ben Smith. So you take that into account. Tim had to settle for second last week. Looks like Drew might have to settle for second this week, Eddie, and that just kind of looks like these two just continue to go, pretty much back and forth. By the way, Tim is looking like right now, as long as things stay put together as they are now, like the first repeat winner of the season, and also going to be the first one to take his team back to victory lane for a second victory on the season.
Yeah, that is true. Tim Moore right now in command. They're coming to 6 laps to go, I believe, or 7. Not sure exactly how they're counting. I think it's 7. I'm pretty sure it's 7 here at the line. But looking at the rest of the field, you mentioned it's a lot of back and forth between Jua and Moore. And that was really the story last season where they finished first and second in the final point standings. But other guys who wanted to make a move in points, Wesley Farrell, if everything holds up, it looks like he's running in 3rd place right now, which would be a very good day for the 7 team. So in the end, despite the very weird and uncharacteristic strategy, he may find himself with a top 3 finish, which would be a nice day for him. Parker Ness needed a good finish as well in 4th. Ohio River Racing runs 3-4-5 right now with Farrell, Ness, and Yohanan at the moment. So could be great days for them. Kukulon a solid 6th. That's where he runs right now as well. But behind Kukulon coming through 1 and 2, it is Tim Moore in the 74. And Moore really in the driver's seat at the moment, trying to hang on. Drew Jua has faded further and further back as a blur in that mirror. So Jua wondering if he's saved enough fuel. He is now drafting off of both Fielder and Steinberg. Steinberg, I think, is 7th. Fielder might be 8th right now. Might be 8th and 9th, actually, because I just realized I forgot to count Chad Eastwan, who's up near Farrell and Ness as well. But we're going to be coming here to 4 laps to go at the stripe, and it's looking like Tim Moore is pretty safe, the defending champion, to beat another former VRC champ, outduel him in pit strategy. Not the first time we've seen that, and set himself up to the victory lane for the 2nd time this season.
And Aiden picking up a win in a crown jewel event. He missed the first one in the 250 a few weeks ago. It wasn't here. His first start came at Chicagoland. He won that race, swept both the halfway and the race, and now looking to try to do that again. Right now, Eddie, if he can finish this, he has a 66% win rate on the season. Three starts, 2 out of the 3 of those are not only wins, but Well, actually, no, I can't say that because he did not win the first half tonight. I guess if you talk about just specifically halfway bonuses, Tim has he's won both of those and both of the checkered flags in 2 out of the 3 races, Chicago and now here. Didn't win the 50 lap one, but that was also a bonus to tonight's race. So, however you want to put that stat, but either way. Tim is about to complete and put himself at a 66% win percentage, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, this has been an impressive run for him. We've seen it before, and now with just 2 laps to go, it looks like Moore is in the driver's seat. Now, I do want to take a quick check on Drew Jua to make sure it looks like he's going to have enough. What he did, he backed off from pushing for the win with Tim Moore and dropped off to Logan Fielder, Tim's teammate, found him and has drafted off him for the last 10 laps or so. Fielder is a lap behind, and the 41, Ryan Steinberg, filling in for Tyler Glass, a teammate of Drew Jua, is doing the same and helping him out. But they're going to come around here, white flag for Tim Moore, looking for his second win of the season, looking for that second checkered flag, and it's looking pretty safe now for Moore down the backstretch here for the final time. And that Flex Seal number 74 Chevrolet for Dark Horse Racing, looking like it'll get back to victory lane. It's going to be the first multi-win season in the VRC for Dark Horse Racing. And off of turn number 4, Tim Moore is going to get it down at Stars and Stripes 300. The number 74 to victory lane. He'll slow it down, have some fun cruising across the line. Tim Moore takes it at Charlotte.
Indeed, he does, and I believe Drew going to make it across in the second position with the fuel mileage. I don't think he ran out. So, again, I don't know. I don't know that Drew can be upset. I guess we'll hear from him in a minute shortly, and how things went for him. But either way, he won last week. He's had really the one outlier race for him was the 250, which again was probably an outlier for most people. So. Aside from that, I think he finished 3rd at Chicago, won last week and now 2nd here. So he's on a roll, as again that entire team is. Oh, and by the way, he keeps the streak for Spooky Dookie Racing alive. And again, he has had a car. That team's had a car in the top 2 every race this season.
Yeah, so exciting race for sure. We'll find out the results. We're going to get a few driver interviews before we sign off as well. But we do know Tim Moore first, Drew Jua was second. 3 cars did not finish the race. Gavin Hudspeth finished 14th. 15th place was Casey Masser. 16th was Ike Shelley. 16 cars started. So, a little bit of drama between the drivers, but that's always going to happen. Honestly, a pretty cool race. Honestly, a pretty good race and pretty exciting from start to finish. Those first 50 laps were chaotic with so many cars battling for the lead. Saw a couple of wrecks after that. Bit of a messy stretch between lap 51 and 100, but then finished out with a good run overall. Looking at the finishing results, 3rd place was Parker Ness, 4th for Farrell, 5th for Eastwan, 6th Yohanan, 7th Kukulon, 8th for Fielder, 9th Steinberg, 10th Urguez, 11th for Ben Smith, 12th Kyle England, 13th Miniker, and then the 3 cars that did not finish the race. So Chad Eastwan had the fastest lap, but we're going to try and invite a couple of drivers in and get some driver interviews here in a moment from those top 3 finishers. But definitely a fun race to watch tonight, and it'll be interesting to hear from our race winner, as well as Drew Jua, who came up very close, and Wesley Farrell, who had a bold strategy and nearly got it done. So, Bryce, we've seen a couple of clean races in a row with some fun finishes, but it's looking like, just like last season, it's going to be a battle between Tim Moore and Drew Jua.
Indeed it is. These two have just been battling it out all season long, back and forth with one another, and it just continues to be that way for both of them. And again, that's how it was last season, and it looks like that's how it's going to be this season. Some of the other guys that were kind of up in contention for the championship, even just a couple weeks ago, have kind of slipped back. Casey Masser has had a rough couple weeks. He didn't have a great sub last week at Richmond, and then tonight did not finish the race. 15th place finish, another bad finish. Got some points at halfway, but only a couple of points there. It not going to do too much for him in the point standings, and that's not going to help him out. And then, of course, Tyler Glass may be the one other guy, I think at this point, maybe a couple others, but Tyler Glass might be the one other guy, I think, when he comes back that has something to say about this.
So we've got a couple of drivers here. We're going to get a few. Maybe somebody here could work on interviewing Parker, bringing Parker Ness into the party. For some reason, I don't actually have him as a friend. He'll be very betrayed by that.
I will work on that.
Okay, but let's start. I'm going to talk to our second place finisher, Drew Jua. Oh, wow, you're so famous. Okay, so be sure to include your audio, Drew. Second place finish, coming up just short to Tim Moore tonight. You guys played an interesting fuel strategy. Tim saved just a little bit more. Take us through your run tonight in that number 10.
We had good speed. It was a fun race. Unfortunately, that after the second half away, he just had a better circumstances with pedals and stuff. He just was able to save more that first run, and ever since the first run, I was playing catch-up, and I could never save more with him because of my throttle blimping back and forth. But yeah, it was a good race. It was fun to see Casey up there because he was having a laugh until he went to go watch the Wizards game. I knew throughout the season that he told me when I signed him earlier before the season that he would lead the race only if there was a Wizards game. And I was like, you know what? That's perfectly fine. If you want to race the whole race, do it. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. But yeah, I mean, we had speed. I was happy to see 1, 2, 3 Team Drew for a little bit. I was hoping to go back-to-back nights with the Team Drew sweep. But it doesn't happen like that always. But yeah, we had a great run.
Now, I got to ask you one thing, because we've seen a lot of these fuel mileage battles over these past couple seasons between you and Tim, and unfortunately, while you've beaten him straight up in terms of speed a couple of times, it feels like more often than not, it's Tim that gets the leg up when it comes to battling it out with fuel strategy. So do you think there's anything you can maybe improve upon for yourself to maybe be able to beat out Tim in these types of scenarios going forwards?
It's all about just it's all about positioning, really. Sometimes I don't position myself well enough compared to him to save fuel, and especially that first run, I started off maybe the first 3, 4, 5 maybe laps just pushing it as hard as I could instead of trying to save a little, and I think that's really where he got basically a head start on me, and I could never catch up. It's gonna be interesting to see the fuel strategies and the saving strategies for the rest of the season, but I'm hoping maybe, just maybe, I can get one on him this season.
All right, well, Drew Jua comes up second place. Bryce, maybe you can take Parker Ness.
Indeed, and first of all, Drew, I do want to give you this stat as well. Again, you keep your team streak alive, by the way, as well. Again, another car was inside the top 2 every race this season now, so good job on that by y'all. But let's take over Parker. Parker, sir, do you have a copy?
Yes, sir. I got you.
Man, I tell you what, tonight's race was almost really 2 different races in one, because you had the first half where we had the segments there. There was insane racing, not a ton of strategy. There was a little bit, between lap 100, that second middle portion of the race, I guess you could call it. The halfway race between the first half and the second halfway, and but anyway, we really saw 2 different races tonight, because that one we saw a lot of side-by-side racing, a lot of hard-nosed racing, which I like to see. We had a lot of fun calling that up here from where we were at, but I know you were in the middle of that. But then really the second half of this race, just everything changed. Some sort of switch got flipped, because we went green the entire way. The last 100, about 97, 98 laps, we went green completely. Multiple rounds of green flag pit stops, and a lot of strategy going on. Just 2 completely different races, and I guess I'll start with first. You had a lot of speed tonight, and I know you're still trying to kind of climb your way back up in points a little bit. You had a solid run last week at Richmond, started to move in the right direction, and now a 3rd place here tonight. Definitely, I think third or fourth, where you're going to be climbing up even more in points, I would think, after tonight. So I'll start for this. Looking at all that, how was your race tonight? Because again, kind of two races in one, with the first half being a lot of hard racing and second being a lot of strategy.
Yeah, the first half for me was not that great. I qualified well in third place. As like on lap 3 or whatever, as I was trying to get to the lead, I got shuffled out and I got stuck in the back of the whole rest of the half. So that was unfortunate. Couldn't get any stage points. I think I got like 6th and 8th or something in the first 2 stages. But once we got track position in the last stage, it really took off. We led a lot of laps. Car was really good in clean air. We had a really good battle with Sebi, Wesley, and Chad. We were like double file for like 5 laps straight, so that was really fun. Other than that, the car was really good. Second half, it was just a little sucky in the first half, just being stuck in the back and dirty air and getting wrecked that one restart. So that was unfortunate, but that second half, that really went to life. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, the podium out of it, and hopefully things will go up from here.
Indeed, Parker. Well, I do have to ask you this though. In the second half, particularly, we did have the strategy. Ultimately, it came down to Tim, kind of getting the fuel mileage, and Drew doing the same thing to get second. You're the highest finishing driver though that was not doing a fuel mileage strategy during that second half there, where all that was going on. Looking back at it, would you have changed anything about kind of the strategy you were doing, or did you just feel like the fuel saving for what you were trying to do was just a little bit too much out of your wheelhouse? You weren't quite able to do it, or you didn't think you would be?
Yeah, I don't think I would have changed anything in my strategy. It worked out really well because I was able to catch up to Wesley, who pitted like a couple laps earlier than me, and I was able to catch up to him. I'm sorry. I just really am not that great at fuel saving. Like, I suck at it. I will not have a chance at all if any more races get to fuel saving. So I just couldn't keep up with Tim and Drew with that. But the strategy I had to beat the rest of everyone else, that was a really good strategy. Using Chad as a pick there to get by Wesley as well. So I don't think I would have changed anything. I just couldn't compete with Tim or Drew with that fuel saving.
Indeed. Well, final question for you. Obviously, you've been trying to climb your way back up in the points a little bit after a slightly rough start to the season. You're starting to do that now, forming some runs up together. But this is our last VRC race of 2021. So I got to ask, on that note, obviously the season's not over. But how do you take this? How do you take this year in OMA as a whole, from the driver's seat? How do you look at it, and kind of what is your outlook for the rest of the season in 2022?
Yeah, 2021 for me in the OMA was really good. We had a successful rookie season last season, finished 5th in points, had a good OTC season, unfortunately came up short for that championship. And so far into this season, yes, as you said, it's been a rough start, getting that almost last place finish at Daytona, and then 11th at Chicago, and then got a little bit better at Richmond, 7th, and now today with that podium. So I think this season is improving. Next race is at Watkins Glen, and I'm not very hopeful about that, but after Glen is Talladega, so I think that is the best next shot at winning. And then after that, there's a lot of good tracks for me. So I think this second half of the season is going to be really go really well for me. And yeah, I mean, overall, so far it's been rough, but second half should be good for me.
Absolutely, man. Well, Parker, congratulations on an amazing year in OMA. Congratulations on your first podium of this season. And good luck in the next race at Watkins Glen and throughout 2022 and the rest of the season.
Yep, thank you guys.
Absolutely. Eddie, you are with...
All right. I'll wrap us up here with the race winner, the legend. Tim, yes sir, Tim Moore is back in victory lane for the second time this season. He gets the win, fuel saving for the second time at 1.5 miles at Charlotte. A fast run for that 74 car, Tim. You were a little further back. It was a big battle through those first 50 laps, seemed very evenly matched, but of course, you were able to save a lot of fuel there as the fuel strategies really got spread out throughout the field there. So take us through those last 100 laps as you were able to save enough to get this win.
Well, yeah, first off, I actually didn't even know till we started the race. Like, I knew we were on 2X, obviously, like we are every week, but I don't know why in my head I thought that 2X was 25 laps compared to 30, so I never thought this race, at least from what I remember last year, fuel was never in the equation unless caution came out, especially past the second halfway. And the first run, we were up there, the car was, I mean, when you're on the straight default before you get adjustments in, I mean, the car was just so tight. And the big thing is we had normal, the big thing compared to last season is that we had normal draft on compared to low, which was last year, which made it a lot more closer racing, with the guys being up bumper to bumper, but it also made it a lot harder to get your car looser and really hold the bottom. We found in the first stage or until the first halfway, a lot of guys just running over each other and there wasn't much room. And I knew we had a fast car, but I mean, I'm just going to be honest, I didn't really know who I could trust up there in that first half. And then second half, we had a caution come out. We raced pretty hard. And then I'm like, you know what? It's within the window. Drew didn't think he could do it. I said, all right, I'll be the one that tries it. And we ended up winning that halfway. But the second half, I'm like, all right, well, we had 30 laps. I know, like I said before, I thought we had 25, on the initial fuel tank, but we had 30. So I said, all right, I saved 5 in the first half. I don't see why I can't break it down here and do it again, keeping up with the draft this time and getting it done. And this time Drew was on board, And Drew says, what I got to do better is put myself in better positioning. I honestly think the only thing Drew has to do differently is just get a new pedal set because he's right there every time. I'm just being honest. I think that's the true difference for Drew. Drew was in position. In my opinion, Drew was better than me the entire day in terms of where he was on the racetrack and what he had to do. I found myself on, coming out of pits having to catch him in times. And while, yes, I had the tire advantage with the draft being the way it was, he would theoretically have a little bit more of the right play, as I like to say. But, I think that's just the ultimate difference. But, I mean, it came down to just patience and hoping there wasn't going to be a caution, because I'll tell you right now, if I'm just being honest how the day went, I was real scared to drive around the 7 early on. He was like swerving all over the place and really in a couple times put us in vulnerable spots where he was tight on the door. And again, I'm all for aggressive racing. I just felt at times it was a little bit too much. And of course, I don't have to say on the 18. I mean, it's worst car on the track every week. So there's not much to say about that. I do have to say, I was very impressed today by Iswan. I think Iswan was patient. Obviously, I have nothing to say bad about Parker or Sebi. They're great. They were great last season. They're arguably the cleanest guys on the track, but Iswan definitely impressed me today with a lot of his patience and understanding as the race went on, which I think played a big factor towards him having a good day today too. So you're starting to see a lot of good guys this season, really start to show up. And moving forward, it's going to be interesting. You have to be patient. And next week, it's funny. Or I shouldn't say next week, but in the new year, first race after the new year, patience is going to be key, because I think Drew thinks we're going to Phoenix, but we're not going to Phoenix. We're actually going to Watkins Glen, the home of Kukulon. So, right, 100% that is 100% true. However, we're going to the house of Kukulon, which means we're racing for second. So, very good point. Yeah, but we're going to Watkins Glen next week. The home track I don't consider to be my home track, but I'm excited, to end off on the back-to-back wins, and I'm real proud of Dark Horse today. I know, again, Kyle didn't get the result he wanted, but he's learning on the job, as I like to put it, and he's put in situations where he tried things, and you know what? I'd rather see someone try and fail than see someone not do it at all and just give an excuse for it. So I'm real proud of the effort he's getting in, and he's going to get it down. I especially think towards the midpoint of the season. Again, I'm not looking for results for him early on. I'm looking for consistency, but also a learning and an understanding. I think he's doing a good job of that. And, Logan had a good, solid, clean day as well. So we'll see how he continues to progress, starting a hole this season. But I was real proud of Dark Horse overall. So good day. And back-to-back Charlotte wins, and that's what I'm most proud about. But, man, it's going to be a tough season moving forward. I don't know if I can hold off Drew, if I'm being honest. There's a couple tracks that are just not up to me, for example, next week. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's shaping up to be like last season all over again.
Yeah, it is. 4 races in, 6 races to go. It's Tim versus Drew at the top. Drew won last week. Tim gets the win this time around, and the 74 can celebrate going into the holiday break. So we appreciate the drivers for joining us for some interviews there, and that's going to just about wrap things up. Like we said, some off time, of course, Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, safe and enjoyable holiday season. Next race for the VRC, like we said, Watkins Glen. Sebastian Kukulon will be going for his 4th consecutive victory at Watkins Glen at the VRC level. Only other drivers with wins in the VRC at Watkins Glen are somehow me and then Jarrett Talmadge. So Sebi definitely has the leg. Both Tim and Drew will be going for their first win in the VRC at the Finger Lakes, along with many other drivers. So we'll be interested to see how that works out. But congratulations to Tim Moore on the victory, and a thank you to my partner in crime tonight in the booth, Bryce Ward. Which, once again, happy holidays. Congratulations to Tim Moore. That'll wrap things up. He wins the VRC Stars and Stripes 300. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend.